Fala aí, unicórnio, boa noite, querida. Susto do quê, pô? Torei dele, tinha uma lesão no nervo do dedão. Como? 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 Quê? Foda, mano. Caralho. Mas não tem cirurgia pra fazer? Nada. Só, tipo, tancar e foda-se. Fala, Solange Souza. Oi, Solange Maria Souza Brasil. Gostaria de saber se os meninos do BTS, Cook e Tay já apareceu. Pode me falar? Mano, por que eles apareceriam aqui, caralho? Fiz até piada. Tem que fazer piada de tudo, né, meu querido? Minha querida, na verdade. Tem que fazer piada de tudo, né? Tem que fazer piada de tudo que existe, querida. Não tem jeito. Espero que a gente continue assim, tá ligado? Do nosso jeitinho especial, querida. Fazendo piada e é isso. A cirurgia, você já fez cirurgia, mano? Caralho. Puta merda. Pesado. Por que você tá perguntando, Guilherme? Vai se fuder você, mano. Qual foi, mano? Boa noite, mano. Por que a pergunta, cara? Que filha da puta, cara. Que filha da puta. Eu nem acendi o Johnson ainda, mano. O Johnson Baby Johnson, tá ligado? Que tá escrotesco. 1h30 já. Piá, vou dormir lá pra 5 da manhã, mano. Não é normal? Não é normal pra vocês? Hoje. Hoje. Nem acendi o Space Jam, mano. Tá enorme. É que não dá pra vocês verem. Tá gigantesco. Porra. O cara me faz me sentir um maluco, tá ligado? Esse pá que nós vai jogar Monster Hunter hoje de madrugada, tá, galera? Galera. Tá, galera? Tá bom, galera? Mas dá pra nós jogar uma runzinha de Undermine, hein? Dá, né? Dá pra nós brincar, né? Dá pra nós brincar, né? Teve atualização, né? Teve atualização, né? Já tá virando normal se tornar os pescados, cara. Isso depende da época. Depende da época, depende da época. Depende da época. Tem época que é normal, tem época que não é tão normal, mano. tá ligado? O que não é normal, mano, é esse teu preconceito, seu filho da puta. Cala a boca, filho. Cala a boca. Nossa, bom. Funcionou perfeitamente. Pera aí, gente. Pera aí. Pera aí. Pera, vem comigo. Vem comigo. É, velho. Faz esse. Não deu pra ouvir? Não deu pra ouvir? Não deu? Não rolou a SMR? Jura? Eu tô agitado hoje. Eu bebi muito vinho e muita cerveja, mano. Muito, muito de tudo. Então eu tô agitado. Eu tô agitado. E você, Guiro? Como é que foi a sua noite? Cara, quando que nós vai dar um rolê pra tomar uma junto? Cara, pelo amor de Deus, mano. Nós moramos na mesma cidade, cara. Tô pelo céu, então não deu pra ouvir. Gay, 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 gay. Meu Deus. Quando vai ter o rolê, mano? Semana que vem. Bora? Na moral? Ou você vai dar uma de gay de novo? Como sempre, na verdade. Não importa, mano. Ô, relaxa, filho. Ô, isso é a última coisa que você tem que se preocupar, mano. Você ter grana ou não, cara. Oxi. Eu tô mandando comigo. Relaxa, dog. Ei, eu não tô te chamando pra pagar conta. Tô te chamando pra colar no rolê, mano. Relaxa, filho. Relaxa, relaxa. Ô, nada a ver. Nada a ver. Você tá brisando torto, mano. Você tá brisando torto. Você tá brisando torto, pai. Deixa eu mudar o jogo. Se dinheiro é um impedimento, esquece. Pode colar que tu vai. Tu vai tá bem, mano. Você é parceiro, meu amigo. Você é meu parceiro. Eu brisando torto. Você está, mano. Fala, Kamashi. Fala, querido. Claro, ó. Como é que você está? Está bem, filhote? Boa noite. Seja bem-vindo. Quanto tempo, cara? Saudades, mano. Você não aparece mais aqui, caralho. Vindo do gay. Vindo do quê? Mano, comigo tá suave, pai. Relaxa, relaxa, pai. Relaxa. Vixe.
Talvez seja eu. Top 5 bizarrices do programa da azeitona. Nossa. Programa da azeitona?
Problema da azeitona, cara. Não sei o que é isso também. Vamos jogar um pouco de Undermine, ver até onde a gente chega, depois a gente joga outra coisa. Beleza? E aí, Cabachota, como é que tá a vida, cara? Conta pra nós. Na paz, meu mano. O que você tem feito de bom, cara? Conta pra nós também. Conte tudo. Conte o código do seu cartão. Código de segurança. 3 dígitos no verso do seu cartão. Conte. Conte. Tem medo? Ai. Tá, porra. Mano, fala Kabashi. Kabashi não, fala aí, unicórnio. Peguei um trampo de segurança. Pensa em um filho da porra. 6 graus, mano. Você tá fazendo agora esse trampo, mano? Qual foi, dog? Muita coisa. Meu gato anulou meu teclado, deu a tela azul no PC. Caralho, viado. Tá louco. Que isso? Cacete. Tá de ódio. Bomba. E agora, hein? Pô, isso aqui é muito bom, mano. Na real. Hã? Dano de vida amplificado que você recebeu, Marcelo Vingança. Cara, eu juro que eu não sei o que é isso, mano. Eu vou pegar o maxilar. É mais confiável. Sinceramente. Da panca? O que é? Vou te mandar uma fitinha no Insta, manda, eu acho, mano. Fitinha? O que é uma fitinha? O Guiro falou, notícia é que algumas ações da Capcom vai falir por causa do Monster Hunter. Deve ter só 447. Mano, escreve direito o bagulho, filho. Tá difícil de defender assim, mano. Caralho. 1000 vendas. Ah, tá. Mandei, já vou ver, querido. E o boicote dessa empresa de cartão pros jogos. Não só jogos, como pornografia também, né? Muito peculiar esse movimento da Visa e da Mastercard. Que caos é esse que tá acontecendo? Mano, vários caos estão acontecendo, né? Vários causos no céu, sua fauna aberta. Pô, foi mal, mano. Eu devia ter sido mais sensível com essa condição, tá ligado? Não pode nem jogar e bater uma punhetinha. É, pois é, mano. Você viu, tá ligado? Estão querendo tirar tudo de nós, velho. Estão simplesmente querendo tirar tudo de nós, mano. Proibido ser feliz. Mas parece que já tem uma galera na VPN, né? Nem jogando eu tô. Nada, cabra. Deixa eu ver o que você mandou. Pera aí. Caralho, você tá no trampo, tipo, nesse instante, mano. Caceta. Não, e o bicho parece estar congelando, cara. Caralho, viado. Você é louco, cabachota. Você tá maluco? Eu já não tinha nada que quero tirar de mim. Eu tô com medo. Por que você tá com medo, unicórnio? Mas, ô cabachota, você se dá bem, mano, com ficar, tipo, acordado de madrugada?
There are no olives here. Bring out the olives.
Ah,
Puta, esse é bom. Esse vídeo é bom.
pô, que desespero é esse, cara?
É a mulher que tem medo de azeitona, vocês já viram, já?
Deathly afraid
Já
of
viram?
cotton balls.
I can't see them, I can't touch them, I can't hear them, and I don't want to be around it. I don't want.
O louco faz SMR sonando ensinar um peidinho molhado. Puta, foda que eu tô dando vários peidos, mano.
Mano, que ideia de levar pro programa. Ah, eu tenho fobia. Fobia de quê? De azeitona? Aí vem o cara com pó de
Com
azeitona.
muita azeitona.
No susto dos outros.
Tá porra.
Where'd she go?
I don't want them to surprise me with the bird coming out.
You know, so I'm not going to surprise
Birds.
you. I will tell you if I bring it out.
No, Mark. Tell him take it off. Tell him take it off. I trust you, Maury. I trust you. Maury, I trust you. I trust
Bring out the bird.
Meu Deus do céu.
And tell everybody what you are deathly...
Mano, sim, é bem tranquilo na real. Mas, tipo, não te incomoda trocar o dia pela noite, essa parada toda, mano? De brisa, tá ligado?
afraid of.
Medo de alumínio?
Aluminum foil.
O papel de alumínio, mano. Olha, malé.
Assim, mano, tu é mó
Olha, malé.
doideira, tá ligado? Tu é mó maluquice mesmo, tá ligado? Eu gosto muito de acompanhar aí teus conteúdos. Pô, me divirto
Até
pra
que não,
caralho,
mano.
tá ligado?
Caralho, embrasado,
Meu
tá?
sonho de
Embrasado,
trocar
embrasado.
uma ideia contigo, tá ligado? E aliás, meu nome é Ayrton Senna. Ayrton Senna mesmo, tá ligado? Não mesmo, é Silva Chagas. Ah, é essa parada aí. Valeu, tamo junto, mano. Forte abraço.
Tipo, um dia na semana é tranquilo. É só um dia?
Porra, deu R$1, mano. R$1 pra tu falar essa merda. Vai começar. Cadê Renatinha, hein? Tem que fechar pra não vazar merda. Cadê Renatinha, hein?
Só pra formar um gol de rapidinho. Foda.
I want her to give you a picture of a lizard.
Largado.
Lizards.
You don't like that? Just a picture. Take
Pode
it
ser
off
real,
the
mano.
screen,
Não
please.
pode ser real.
Take it.
Pô, meu
Não
de
pode ser.
largado. Tadinho.
Não pode ser real, mano. Não pode ser.
No, Olive.
Tadinho. Novo personagem pra escolinha, Bomberman. Personagem não tem fala, só coloca uma bomba na sala e vira historinha. Cara, não é assim que funciona não, cara.
Não é assim que funciona. Só nesse mês, no
Assim
caso.
não.
Foda.
Mas
é só um dia na
tô
semana?
escrevendo um monte de personagens. Maneiro. Nós todos, né? Mas eu tô me dedicando
Foda demais, pô. Sai, para. Muito bom, muito bom. Mano.
mais do que eu deveria. Mas eu gosto muito. A escolinha é minha vida.
Que isso? Ah, que delícia.
Não.
Você
Que
é a única
isso,
pra
mano.
mim. Ai, vovó.
É essa? Quantas vezes eu já falei que não é pra da vovó?
Não.
Eu não
Porra, é
consigo
essa?
correr. Eu preciso terminar. Oh, meu.
Não.
Porra é essa, mano?
Oi, Bu. Nel. E aí, linda?
Como tá, vovó?
Vovó? Quem liga pra vovó?
O seu pingolim tá pra fora.
Porra é essa, mano?
Opa, parou. Eu acho que é isso. Hora de ir pra casa e enfrentar o bisturi.
A gente vai sugar cada gota de diversão dessas antes que você perca ela. Juntinhos.
Que isso, mano?
O dia da castração. Ó. Maneirinho.
Que porra é essa, mano?
Gostei.
Achei foda. Parece foda, mano.
Mano, que vídeo diabólico. Aí, Jojo. Quanto pra tu vazar pro usador da escolinha? Cara,
Caralho, eu vi
R$100
essa merda aí. Eu não vi,
que-
mano. É da Netflix ainda. Você assistiu inteiro? Você assistiu
Bom,
inteiro?
R$100 em frente.
Dia da castração, mano.
Novo personagem da escolinha. Seu saque da Silva. Caralho, Jojo é esse mesmo.
Caralho, jogou o cachorro da manhã no mar. Isso nem pode,
Fala
viado.
galerinha do meu canal, hoje eu vou estar fazendo
Nem lançou ainda, eu acho. Ah, entendi. Nem fudendo, mano. Para. Para.
Igor Rezende, valeu pelo sub aí, ó. Vários Jackson
Igor
Botado,
Resenha.
tá aí, um prato cheio. É, pra quem gosta de cocô,
Igor
gosta
Resenha,
de
hein?
comer merda.
Qual que é o nome da dupla dinâmica?
Timão, Pumba.
Gordinho iludidaço.
Muito feio.
Pronto, quer gastar barriga de show, barriga de tampinho? Ô, irmão de Coça-Cu, quer gastar?
Pega mais mulher que ele, né, paizão? Você sabe.
Qual que é o nome da dupla dinâmica?
Boa. Foda,
É
foda.
mole?
Os caras é foda.
cara que deve ao banco, o cara que deve ao joia.
Premissas foda. Você é louco, vamos ver essa bosta aí. Irmão do Cossacu é foda, demais, mano, demais.
Que foi? Olha o homem aí, tá
O cara que deve ajudar.
que ele batendo.
Pensa num cara em choque, mano. Pensa num cara preocupado. Pensa num bicho preocupado, mano.
Vinicinho, tem novo filme do Rassum na Netflix. Família, pera, não. Mentira, não. Não.
Nem fodendo. Nem fodendo.
Ô, filha. Eu queria contar uma novidade
Nem
pra
fodendo.
vocês. Eu me apaixonei. E eu vou me casar. Ele é argentino.
Que porra é essa, cara?
Sinceramente.
Pô, mano, vou te falar. Escolha do Brochado.
Porra é essa?
220 mil visualizações, tá bom? Não gostei, não. Nem pra vir em live, mano. Não tem nenhuma... Eu quero ver a da delegada, pô. Que ele virou a delegada lá. Uma delegada brilhante. Online. Porra, isso pica, pô. Ah. Pô, qual foi? Advogada, pô. Uma advogada brilhante. Online.
Esse filme é muito do advogado ou do Perolo Mútil, cara?
Não tem lugar nenhum, cara.
Família Perolo Mútil, eu não assisti. Você assistiu essa porra aí, Yuri?
Cagar dentro de casa. Está muito calor lá fora.
Você jura que você assistiu? Eu vi 10 minutos de dormir, puta merda, aí não.
Cara, não entendi porra nenhuma, viado.
O cachorro tá em choque.
Hoje. Você tinha que fazer um rostinho de feliz, não é? Ou triste, mas como você tá se sentindo?
Hulk.
Só assim, o Hulk. Tô me sentindo meio Hulk hoje, família. Quem nunca, mano? Quem nunca? O Vinicinho sem esboçar nenhuma reação, eu simplou cascando. Porque é muito bom, mano. Olha o último que te mandei no Insta. Pô, pera aí, mano.
Tem alguma habilidade assim diferente na hora H?
É, eu peido pela Xana.
Você consegue representar isso pra gente?
Consigo.
Consegue? Tudo bem, tira o crachá do trabalho pra não ter...
Caraca, mano.
Oi?
Eu sou autista.
Então você não enxerga nada.
Isso, nunca vi um pau, sou pura.
Faça a sua melhor cantada. Linda, você gosta de chocolate?
Gosto.
Gosto. O meu peru é de chocolate. Há quanto tempo um casal não dá uma...
Caralho.
É, uma semana.
Mentiroso!
Mentiroso?
Sei lá, umas 2 semanas.
Caralho.
Inteligente pau pequeno ou burro pausudo?
Inteligente, pau pequeno.
Aê! Ele é inteligente?
É.
Tem uma posição
Você é
favorita?
louco, mano.
De 3.
De 3?
Hã?
Como assim?
Nem fudendo. Não, nem fudendo. Nem fudendo. Nem fudendo. Nem fudendo. Nem fudendo. Nem fudendo, mano. De 3, nem fudendo.
Tá sentindo o que, filho?
Hulk.
Que isso, cara?
Você tá se sentindo hoje? Você tinha que fazer um rostinho de feliz, não é? Ou triste, mas como você tá se sentindo?
50 Cent coreano mandou R$1. Você arruinou uma geração inteira de MLKS com essa petulância que chama de humorístico. É uma honra pra mim você implicar CMG. Criei essa página há um mês pra apostar coisas do meu artista favorito e você usa a tua plataforma gigante pra tentar me usar de louco. Sudoeste, ganhei seguidor e mostrei pra quem N sofre lavagem cerebral da sua bolha o quão patético você é e incapaz de engajar de boa numa discussão aberta.
Só isso do teu Brasil. Vai aplicando.
Que porra é essa?
A nova geração é esse homem aí, ó. Quem vem?
A debochada. Para. Parou. Para,
Entendi,
para,
entendi.
para.
Entendi.
Ô, irmão, vendeu. É só você acertar lá no caixa lá. No caixa? É, acertar lá no caixa lá.
Ah, qual é, mano?
Não, nem fudendo.
Ô, irmão, vendeu. É só você acertar lá
Nem
no caixa
fudendo.
lá. No caixa? É, acertar lá no caixa
Isso,
lá.
cara.
Nem fudendo, cara.
Brincadeira de idiota.
Aí, seu copo aí, ó. Ô, irmão, vendeu.
Nem
É só
fudendo,
você
mano.
acertar lá no caixa lá. No caixa? É, acertar lá no caixa lá.
Nem fudendo. Nem fudendo. Que porra é essa? O bicho simplesmente, tá ligado?
Cachorro carioca.
Cachorro carioca. Cachorro carioca.
Pura judiação.
Caralho.
Lu fuzil. Que fofura. Caralho, gente. Você não tem mais o que fazer não, cara? Comentando. A tua vara e o teu cajado me consolam.
Para.
A estar experimentando
Para.
e sendo coberto e cheio desse amor. Neste
Não.
domingo, na Santa Ceia do Amor.
Parou.
Contemporânea de BH, às 19
Parou.
Por isso eu quero te convidar a estar experimentando.
Parou. E daí, Guiro? E daí, mano? E daí?
Tsunami se aproxima, japonês.
Já quase ficou demais. Porra, é muito bom isso aqui, viado. A imagem parada já é sensacional.
Experimentando.
Que isso?
Caralho, vai se fuder, cara. Vai se fuder.
Tsunami se aproxima, japoneses.
Vou nadar e morrer.
Que isso, moderação?
Pô, fudido esse, mano. Vai tomar no cu, mano. O cara que pensou nisso vai direto pro inferno, cara. Foda-se, mano. Vai tomar no cu, mano. Vai tomar no cu. Vai se fuder, mano. Eu nem mudei pro Just Sharing, né, cara? Porque a gente parou de jogar, né? A diferença de sobre e um que usou um Derek Johnson. Mano, você não entende. Você não entende. Você não entenderia. Os caras é bravo, os caras é bravo.
Aí já não sei. Tô aprendendo uma música bolada.
Vamos dormir, Lourenço, bora? Desligar isso aí pra dormir, tá tarde já, viu?
Vamos falar
Tá tarde.
Tá
dormir.
porra.
Ah, não.
Bora, Lourenço, dormir,
Tá
Lourenço,
porra,
bora.
mano.
Desligar isso aí pra dormir, tá tarde já, viu?
Não.
Tá
Tá
tarde.
porra, viado.
Eu achei que eu era criança.
Eu achei que era uma criança também.
Bora, Lourenço,
Caralho,
dormir, Lourenço,
viado.
bora? Desligar isso aí pra dormir,
Tá
tá tarde
porra,
já, viu?
mano.
Tá tarde. Vamos dormir.
Que isso, mano?
De cabelinho, cara. Cabelo de cuia. Meu Deus.
Pior que eu
Chico
também, não
toma
é?
2 doses e queima... Chico toma 2 doses e queima a comida toda no orfanato.
Que? Caralho, mano.
Oi, filha, só um beijinho, cara. Aqui pra vocês. Eu amarrado, não quero beijar eu.
Tá porra. Nossa, mano. Nossa, mano. Peraí, Dani. Peraí, mano. Peraí, mano. Nossa, cara. Puta que pariu, cara. Pô, mano.
Eu tenho uma bicicleta.
Ai, caralho.
Mandou o papo e foi dormir, brabíssimo.
Vai se fuder, cara. Vai se fuder. Não. Deitou na sua... Caralho, hein, cara. Puta que pariu. Caralho, cara.
Eu preciso tomar água. Eu preciso tomar água. Eu preciso tomar água. Eu preciso tomar água. Se você vir compartilhar uma dica, viagem. Melhor, dá para os momentos. Uma colocação de já imaginou transformar esse saldo em uma viagem inesquecível? Investir em algo que você acredita? E o melhor, dá para fazer isso sem burocracia em alguns minutos.
Que medo dessa propaganda.
Tá, mas o que eu preciso fazer? Calma, tranquilo. Fica tranquilo, se você tiver dúvidas, o time da Cloud Express está pronto para te atender. E chama a Cloud para liberar o que é. Grato pelo view de vocês. E também, todos nós temos funcionários, todos nós temos...
Mano, que saindo aí, ó, caralho. Tenta encarar aquela laranja sem dar risada por 30 segundos, não dá. Não dá, mano, não dá. Vamos tentar, peraí.
Todos nós temos funcionários, todos nós temos... Eles é a Cloud para fazer... Esquecido.
Não dá. Vai se fuder, cara. Se fuder essa merda. Vai se fuder essa merda pra caralho, cara. Puta que pariu, mano. Cacete, cara. É tipo encarar o Kiko por 30 segundos. Cara, talvez, não sei, mano. Talvez.
Começando agora...
Talvez seja o equivalente.
Piscatório é um nome bom. Não pode rir de nada, senão tem que charrar o bode. O bode tem que ser charrado.
Ontem de manhã, a lavadeira, uma pobre mulher humilde, ficou sozinha comigo, conferindo o rol. Eu bati um papinho com ela. Sabe como é, né? Papinho pra cá, papinho pra lá.
Eu já fiz isso.
A carne é fraca e...
É.
Acabou acontecendo tudo.
Gozou, né?
Continue. Hoje de manhã, meu cachorro mordeu a perna da vizinha.
Ah, isso aqui eu não tinha visto.
Ela foi lá em casa reclamar. Aí eu bati um papinho com ela. Sabe como é? Papinho pra lá, papinho pra cá.
A carne é fraca.
A carne é fraca. E acabou acontecendo tudo. Continue.
Que porra é essa?
Sabe, doutor?
O cara já tá
Foi por isso
desconfiado.
que vim até aqui. Eu queria bater um papinho com o senhor.
Comigo não! Tá pensando o quê? Essa eu manjo! Papinho pra lá, papinho pra cá, a carne é fraca e eu mifo! Não, da fruta que você gosta!
Porra é essa, cara?
Aê!
Não encosta! Não encosta! Calu da rua!
Isso é verdadeira homofobia, mano. Literalmente medo de
Que isso, cara?
Rua! Para! Para!
Quase deu o cu. Olha, deitou.
Eu acho que tenho que consultar o meu psicanalista.
Essa foi a
Que
punchline.
isso, cara?
Eu acho que tem que consultar o meu psicanalista. Ó, não ri, eu sorri bastante. O filme se chama Banana Mecânica. Ah, tem um filme inteiro.
Tá porra,
Banana
meteoro,
Mecânica
viado.
programada pra papear. Não.
Jesus, mano.
Banana Mecânica... Banana Mecânica é um longa-metragem brasileiro do gênero comédia filmado em 1974, que faz referência ao filme Laranja Mecânica, na época proibido
Banana
no Brasil.
Mecânica.
Pô, olha que interessante, mano. E possui história similar envolvendo tratamento psiquiátrico. Tá, então isso aqui é um filme grandão, né? Não é só uma sketchzinha. Mas é pornô? Rio.
Conhece alguém que sofreu um ataque homofóbico?
Não, não conheço.
Não conheço.
Não.
Não.
Não. Não.
Não, também.
Não.
Não. Não.
Caralho.
Não.
A homofobia é uma invenção da mídia pra manipular. Que gatinho você é? Manda braba. Ó, qual será que o gatinho que eu sou? O Paz e Amor? O gatinho bravo?
Que isso
o gatinho
é...
Guardas, ou o gatinho...
É o... pisca, mano. É o pisca, só que só de fundo. Pra vocês verem o Jojo.
Cara de otário. Os outros 3 eu... Pô, seria qualquer um, tanto faz. Assim nasce uma lésbica. Porra. Que isso, gente? Isso aqui é paia, pô. Uma porretada no bebê. Que é isso aqui? Será que esse cara zerou o Five Nights at Freddy 30? Esse aqui vai ser eu quando tiver no Five Nights at Freddy 7. Sister Location. Mano, se eu conseguisse fazer isso aqui na hora que zerar o jogo... Perdeu não ri não. Eu fiquei assim, ó, bem feliz, mas não ri. Eu não soltei som de risada, não. Se eu conseguir zerar o Five Nights 4 e no momento de zerar, colocar... Não, isso aí é foda, né? O cara é tipo um super-humano, mas várias salsichas na boca, o máximo possível. É um recorde, né? E aí se alguém quiser ser melhor nesse recorde, vai ter que fazer. Eu vou estar no topo por um tempo. Macaco suco.
Macaco suco é um clássico.
Como é que fizeram um macaco fazer tudo isso?
Porque o macaco é o gênio.
Porra.
Esse é bom também. Ai, caralho. Nossa, mano.
Tá indo, cara? Já sabia já, rapaziada. Já sabia. Era... Não, eu sabia. Eu tinha percebido.
Ai, cara. Aí tu jogando aí, Hiro. Tô jogando aí.
De propósito, mano. Não, isso aqui é de propósito. O cara fez um roteiro incrível.
Pobre tem mais, tem que se fuder mesmo. Eu quero que todos peguem na minha pomba. Voltou indo porque quis.
Nossa, Lula revoltado dos conservadores. Isso é IA, tá, galera? Isso é IA. É IA, família, é IA.
Mas eu quero mais é que se foda voltar.
Mano, será que tem como um ser humano acreditar nisso aqui?
Tem sim.
É muito legal, mas ia ser paia também, né? Incentivar isso. Mas, pô, ia ser legal ver alguém caindo nisso aqui.
Sempre tem.
Eu e meu amigo Haddad estamos chegando.
Aí tá muito exagerado.
Meu amigo
Haddad. O cara não enxerga direito e não veja que a boca não tá sincronizada. Tá um papo muito exagerado. Eu vou comer minha picanha, vou tomar minha cerveja, vocês que se foda, seus pobres. Não tem como.
Do Lava Jato.
Nenhum voo cai nisso aqui.
Não ligamos para o povo. E se reclamarem, vou postar foto da Hora no Twitter. Se vier perguntar no Bolsonaro das eleições, essa cara de Bahia pra fora. Sou ladrão mesmo.
Peraí, ele disse isso mesmo?
Povo mesmo. E se reclamar, vou comer o cu da Dilma e postar no Twitter também.
Cara, será que tem alguém que acredita nisso? Isso que é a parte surreal, tá ligado? Será, mano?
Que isso, mano? Pô, isso aqui é mó da hora, né? Esse Lula. Olha esse Lula cabeçudo.
Lula Sigma.
Dá uma figurinha lá no zap, hein? Minha mãe, não quero ver você com a mão embebida nunca. Eu não digo mais nada. Oi!
Dou o meu cu de cabeça pra baixo, fogo com ele a noite inteira.
Olha, ele já tava todo molhado, ele continua ainda. Já pode atravessar. Eita,
aí.
Vai com calma.
Pra que serve a armadura mesmo?
É o Fred Fazbear.
Imunidade explosiva e bom, tá, beleza.
O exato número de luz piscando pra ele se masturbar.
O que você acha do Fred Fazbear, Guiro? Do Fred Fazbear.
Caralho, esse daqui eu não tinha visto.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Are you saying what's up?
Um diamante.
What's up? What's up?
Só corvo gringo.
I know, right? No.
The fuck?
Pô, mas tem aquele do que é café, né? O que é café vai estar
Freddy Fazbear.
Não, tem que ter o do
Você
que é
acha
café.
do
Que é café?
Freddy
Bom dia. Alô,
Fazbear?
bonitão. Mainada Montanha Grácula Religiosa. Esse é o nome do bicho? Grácula
Caralho.
Religiosa? Tem religiosa no nome? Eu tô falando salam aleikum aleatoriamente aqui uns tempos atrás e o pássaro já começa o vídeo falando salam aleikum, mano. Os caras só filmando, esperando o bicho falar.
Salam aleikum.
Salam aleikum. Não é possível que o bicho tá falando salam aleikum. Salam. Salat. Maleikum.
Caralho, mano.
Que isso? Não, isso aqui é fake. Por que ele afinou a voz tanto assim? Será que é outro? Ué, aí voltou a ser
Tá
pássaro?
porra.
Cara, se faz de pássaro sendo que fala? Quase nada. Pássaro maluco fala mais que papagaio 3.
Caralho. Salam aleikum, o bicho na maior paz, tá ligado? Na moral mesmo. Salam aleikum.
Mano, como é que isso é possível de acontecer? Cara, como é que é porra?
Acontece, tá ligado?
Não tem dessa, não.
A vida tem
Virou
dessa.
Nego, agora o salam aleikum, aí é foda, mano. Caralho, como é que eu vou falar que eu não planejei isso?
A vida tem dessa.
Live roteirizada. Mano, eu tava falando salam aleikum aleatoriamente. Agora eu posso aproveitar pra rir. O cara cascando o bico do passarinho falando salam aleikum. Não é só isso, mano. É porque eu tava falando salam aleikum antes de ver o passarinho. Eu não tinha visto nada falando salam aleikum. E eu tava salam aleikum, salam aleikum.
Tá,
mano, de alguma forma o salam aleikum entrou na minha cabeça. Tem que ter alguma lógica por trás disso. Alguém deve ter falado no chat, salam aleikum. Alguém deve ter digitado salam aleikum no chat e ficou na minha cabeça. Aí eu fiquei, salam aleikum.
Salam aleikum.
Mas o salam aleikum, quando o cara mandou... Agora eu lembrei. Salam aleikum. Tá ligado quando foi o gif do boy seta, plau, pansexual, plau, autista, plau. Aí o cara digitou salam aleikum. Isso fez eu rir porque eu imaginei o salam aleikum, plau, e o bicho. E aí ali o salam aleikum entrou na minha cabeça. Mano, é tudo uma simulação.
Foda.
Salam aleikum é de onde,
tudo uma
mano?
simulação.
Sei lá, mano. Eu sei lá o que é salam aleikum. Eu não sei nem o que significa. O que é salam aleikum? Salam aleikum é uma expressão árabe utilizada pelos muçulmanos como uma saudação. Ela significa que a paz esteja sobre vós. Originalmente, a grafia correta dessa expressão é salam aleikum ou assalamu alaikum, sendo que salam aleikum seria a versão aportuguesada. Olha aqui, ó, é salam aleikum. Nossa, eu quase acertei. Eu falei
Você acha o Freddy Fazbear Pógaros?
Salat e salam.
O bicho matou gente e você acha ele Pógaros.
É a paz do Senhor em árabe. Virou um telefone do nada.
Eu teria um pássaro telefone despertador.
Mano,
eu teria,
o bicho é tipo
teria.
o sonoplasta do Rodrigo Faro. Fica soltando vários efeitos sonoros. Mas aí que tá, o bicho ele é tão surpreendente que parece fake, mas todo mundo vai ficar mentindo. Ih, tô devendo, né?
Puta que pariu, pisar no freio.
Nossa, tô burro demais, mano.
E aí, bonitão?
Caralho.
Nossa, é esse, caralho. Finalmente achei, caralho.
Como que tá, bonitão? Bom dia.
Bom dia. Esse aqui ele tem até a voz meio pigarrada de café do
Bom dia.
dele.
É verdade, caralho.
Tudo bom com você? Ah, não quero agora. Acabei de almoçar.
Quer café?
Bom dia.
Bom dia.
Tudo bom ou não?
Como é que isso, mano, como é que pode? Mano, ó, o bicho ele imita o que as pessoas que tá em volta dele faz, né? Igual papagaio. E aí ele, bom dia, ô bonitão, quer café? As falas do cara que mora ali do lado dele, é o que o cara fica falando o dia inteiro, várias vezes. Ai. Incrível como ele reproduz o timbre do cara perfeitamente. É, mano, ele copia a voz do cara, até a falha na garganta é igual. Fala mais que papagaio, imita a voz humana com perfeição.
Tchau.
Mano, olha, seria mandar a boca do WhatsApp. Nossa, imagina se fosse o WhatsApp. Aí não ia ter como acreditar.
Tchau.
Tchau. A boca faz até um... Pássaro chinês, mano. Pássaro japonês. Pássaro inglês. Oh!
Olá, amante das aves. Eu me chamo Daniel e você está
Amante
no canal
das aves?
Descobrindo Animais.
Uhul!
E hoje eu trago o seu nome científico, é Grácula religiosa e pertence à
Grácula
família
religiosa.
Esturni.
Então, realmente, Grácula religiosa é o nome do bicho, mano. Que diferente. Hora de charrar o bode. Hora de dar um soco na costela do bode. Hora de maltratar o bode.
Você é psiquiatra mesmo? De verdade. Que legal.
Nossa, esse aqui eu vi. Putz.
Esse é bom mesmo.
Vamos selar a aliança entre o humano e o macaco com uma banana. Mas César, eu não trouxe banana. E essa bananinha aqui? Não, gente. O cara vai transar com o macaco? Ah, esse macaco é foda. Macaco da marcha atlética. Esse macaco ele tem algum problema ou ele é assim? É a espécie dele que anda desse jeito?
Macaco da marcha. É de fuder, né, cara?
Caralho, a mulher tá tendo que dar uns tapas no cara. O cara tava preso.
Mós peitão também?
Javier Milei discute com pessoas na rua.
Olha, vou te falar um bagulho, cara, em português mesmo, que eu já cansei de falar espanhol.
Não.
Eu tô gravando o meu vídeo e você está me atrapalhando. Eu não tenho nada que violento ao caralho, pô. Eu tô gravando um vídeo, você que tá...
Grande Paulo Cogos, cara.
Você tá me intimidando e vem falar que eu sou violento,
Grande
eu tô
filho
gravando
da
uma live. Esquerdista é tudo assim. Esquerdista é tudo assim. Não, eu sou brasileiro, eu falo a porra da língua que eu quiser. Eu vou falar português agora. O cara tá aqui me ameaçando, me intimidando, porque eu tô falando...
Caralho, cara, que brisa é essa, mano?
Eu falo a língua que eu quiser, cara. If I want to speak in fucking English, I speak in fucking English.
Caralho, olha o Cogos no
Porra é essa, cara?
Motherfucker man.
Don't fucking touch me.
Don't fucking touch me.
Está me intimidando.
Caralho, mas o Cogos é, mano, é peitudão, hein? Caralho, o cara parte pra briga mesmo, eu não sabia disso não. Ele sempre foi assim?
E eu vou chamar a polícia.
E eu vou chamar
Sempre
a
foi
polícia.
assim, profundamente
Até lá a
esquizofrênico.
polícia chegar, já foi. Já tomou vários. Tá, vamos assistir isso aqui. Bom, pra quem não viu isso aqui... Isso aqui é um vídeo que eu editei e postei na net. Ó o PC, ó o estabilizador. Mano, esse bagulho aqui, às vezes tinha que dar um tapa pra ele voltar a funcionar. Um CD, um porta-CD gigantesco. Olha que, mano, esse porta-CD gigantesco, muito foda, não dava nem pra fechar. Tanto CD que tem dentro. O celularzinho aqui de botão e uma
Boa
caneca.
noite, depois eu vou volte pra ver se pescou. Eu não vou pescar hoje, mano.
Né?
Beijos, querido, boa noite. Boa noite, Fat, boa noite.
O que aconteceu, cara? Riu? Mas como que eu não ia rir? Olha o bagulho que aconteceu. Com licença, senhores, vou chamar o bode. E por que tem um barulho de Mickey de fundo? Olha a imagem saindo. Olha, tipo assim, a imagem da frente saindo e depois a imagem de trás saindo. Devia ter apanhado mais na infância. Tá, vamos continuar aqui. Isso aqui combinou muito com o nosso amigo Davi Brito. Não! Ah, tadinho dos esquilos. Tadinho dos Alves e os esquilos. Os caras fizeram a montagem do Davi,
Alves
vilão
e os esquilos.
do Cuphead. Mas sem querer julgar também. Aí é culpa da minha expectativa. Mas aí também tem que ser alguém muito desocupado, né? Pra fazer um bagulho desse. Pô, o pessoal tem que trabalhar, né? Faz você, então. Eu não vou fazer.
Você é psiquiatra mesmo? De verdade. Que legal. Tem cura pra Tourette ou não?
Tourette é uma síndrome que você tem tiques. Além de ser tique motor, tem tique vocal, que você faz essa buzininha aí. Então,
tem uns que eu falo palavrão, doutora.
Palavrão, pode também mandar a pessoa tomar naquele lugar, rapidinho.
Eu fico falando pras pessoas chupar meu...
Uma hora alguém vai chupar, né?
Também, faz parte.
Então, você sabe
gatinho
que uma pergunta
fofo
que me fala assim, eu sei que não é sobre
do cu
Tourette, que é outra
chupado.
coisa, mas é rapidinho, só pra esclarecer.
Pode falar.
Eu te amo, você me perdoa?
Nossa, você é louco.
Você fala assim, doutora, é tique também, não liga não.
O cara tem o passe, né? O cara tem o passe pra agir desse jeito.
É tique, sim.
É, ó, deixa eu te falar. Tipo assim, o que ia falar, Danilo?
Eu não sei.
Esqueci.
O cara é um Mainá da Montanha. O cara age igualzinho o Mainá da Montanha. Tem as frases prontas, programadas.
A senhora é...
Seu Madruga.
Pediatra, né?
Não tem como, cara, não tem como. Não tem como, não tem como. Não tem
Tá
como.
bom, com licença, me dele, com licença, com licença. Tá, o cara mandou aqui, ideia pra live. Reaja ao seu Twitter antigo. Pedro Henrique, olá, meu nome é Pedro, torço pro Corinthians, tenho 12 anos e ando de skate. Para saber mais, follow me. Aí aqui as coisas postadas. Se um gringo vem pro Brasil e só sabe o idioma dele, é chique. Mas se um brasileiro pra outro país e só
vai
sabe
pra
português,
gringa.
é pobre e burro. O cara é tão preguiçoso, falou, a morte falou vamos, ele respondeu ah não, viveu mais 3 anos. Você já reparou que todo mundo fica mais feliz na sexta-feira trabalhando do que no domingo à noite descansando? E aí, gente, quem tá online fala eu. Se alguém me ouve, dá retweet. Vou no banheiro fazer número 2 e quando eu voltar vou indicar todos os que me seguem e que me seguirem. Gente, me sigam, por favor. Eu indico e sigo quem me seguir. Pessoal, por favor, me sigam. Só tem
Pensa num cabra que segue.
Gente, vocês não vão acreditar no que aconteceu. O mudo falou pro surdo que o cego viu o aleijado andando de bicicleta. Gente, vocês não vão acreditar no que aconteceu. O mudo falou pro surdo, de novo, que o cego viu o aleijado andando de bicicleta. Oh, 2 exclamação. Gente, vocês não vão acreditar no que aconteceu. O mudo falou pro surdo que o cego viu o aleijado andando de bicicleta. Oh, sem exclamação.
Falaram que eu senti uma energia muito boa de mim. Tipo... E um cara, como
puta,
o
esse é bom.
querido
Esse
segurança
é bom.
aqui da rua, já falou que eu vim nesse mundo, ele sente que eu vim pra dar.
Puta merda.
O cara tá pedindo. Daqui então, viado. Aí, dá pra dar, vai. Aí, o coroa jogou o verde pra ele. Ele foi. E ele... Calma, Cedrico. Rodrigo cagalhando.
Ai, gozei cedo. Bom, charrada, né, no bode.
Caralho.
Pediu pra charrar, charrou. Hélio Memes com a fonte do bode.
A mesma bola. Para me animar, alguém tinha que me dar uma bola quadrada. Ou pelo menos uma bola com que eu nunca tenha brincado.
Mas como é que a gente vai conseguir um?
Eu tenho o que você precisa.
Não.
Que isso, dog, que isso.
Interpol.
Mas tu fez uma prova pra Interpol, tu tinha que falar inglês. Fala uma frase em inglês, por favor.
Deixa eu ver.
Feijão com farinha. Vamos esse vídeo, cara. Feijão com farinha. Não, ele nem fala com sotaque. Ele nem fala com sotaque. Feijão com farinha? É só isso.
Deixa eu ver. Feijão com farinha?
Feijão com farinha? Porra, tá ligado? Esse vídeo é incrível. Esse vídeo é inacreditável, cara. Vocês não entenderiam, cara. Vocês não entenderiam.
Feijão com farinha. Tá, peraí. Só um
Vocês
segundo.
nunca entenderiam, cara.
Só um segundo. Feijão com farinha.
Ele não faz sotaque, ele não faz sotaque. Deixa o cara gozar.
Singola não existe. Sigole.
Segue o capítulo 18, segunda temporada da série Bares pelo Mundo, review do Chico Raiz. Hoje cheguei acelerado com astra de fuga e trajado de máfia. A mochila é só cheque motivo 1112, calma gente. Vou apresentar pra vocês o Boteco 80, o Bar do Pisca, ali na linha 80 Flores da Cruz.
Puta merda,
Assim,
Bar do Pisca.
Olha o vídeo que os caras acharam.
Entrei porta dentro, me deparei com esse jogo de pneu e já pedi a especialidade.
Olha o tamanho do cara. Vestido de mafioso, no bar do Pisca.
Na sequência, entrei porta dentro, me deparei com esse jogo de pneu e já pedi a especialidade.
Caralho, o cara é gigantesco,
Olha o tamanho
mano.
do Cara, vestido de mafioso no bar do Pisca.
Na sequência, fui interagir com a turma. Para modo de curiosidade, o Pisca era caminhoneiro. Automaticamente, a turma da rodagem tá sempre por ali. E segurei que nós estava conversando, resolvendo os problemas do mundo, é o Cazuza. Faz Flores da Cunha Pará. As aventuras de Cazuza em Belém do Pará. Ver o peso, peixe e tigela de açaí nos domingos de manhã. Enquanto eu e o Cazuza falava de Bete Balan.
Cazuza, mano. O cara chama Cazuza.
Se o tempo não para, comi tudo os pingos de ouro do Cazuza. Aí retribuí.
Comeu o pingo de ouro do Cazuza.
Paguei um isoldinho pra ele. Isopor, salgadinho, isoldinho. Pegou o código. Pisca, consegue uma bacia. Distribuí isoldinho pra todo mundo. Já proposteei o Pisca. 150 pila nesses pneus.
Mano, esse vídeo é o vídeo mais cabuloso do mundo.
Pagamento nesse Pix que tá na parede. Segui trocando ideia com a turma, com esse segurinha aí falamos da
mas que bosta, cara. Como é que pode existir uma porra dessa?
Baixo meretrício e Berg no lugar de água. Fez exame esses dias, deu muito sangue no Berg. Cazuza, Pisca e eu tava com...
Fez exame esses dias, tem muito sangue no Berg,
mano. Nesses pneus, pagamento nesse Pix que tá na parede.
É muita informação. É muita informação.
Código. Pisca, consegue uma bacia. Distribuízo.
Pisca, consegue uma bacia. Parece que mandou a inteligência artificial falar.
Pra todo mundo. Já proposteei o Pisca. 150 pila nesses pneus. Pagamento nesse Pix que tá na parede. Segui trocando ideia com a turma. Com esse segurinha aí falamos da importância da rotina. A dele é 4 vezes por semana no baixo meretrício e Berg no lugar de água. Fez...
A dele é 2 vezes por semana no baixo meretrício e Berg no lugar de água.
Fez exame esses dias, deu muito sangue no Berg.
Deu muito sangue no Berg.
Cazuza, Pisca e eu tava contando mentira, do nada chegou o Gralha de Flores. Tava com as unhas que era um tatu, porque tava saindo do serviço. Olha que o Gralha de Flores tem um pistão no chevette no braço. Paguei 2 doses de Blackwoods e intimei pra sinuca. Perdi pro Gralha de Flores também, ele tem um pistão no chevette no braço. Depois da derrota na sinuca, encontrei esse guri ali, o Cheiracola. Pra modo de curiosidade, o Pisca em...
Cazuza, Pisca e eu tava contando mentira.
Pra modo de curiosidade, o Pisca, inquilino do Cheiracola. Me disse que esse apelido Top é o apelido no PX.
Apelido Top? Ele encaixou o top.
PX. Proposteei na Scania, disse que não vende. Depois de um papo estradeiro aí com o Cheiracola, lembrei que...
O cara vive um RPG, ele sai negociando coisa com as pessoas na rua.
Precisava comprar umas coisinhas lá pra casa. Peguei bucho, batatinha, alho, cebola, fiz um lanche, pausa pra ir no banheiro. Pisca deve ter ganhado desconto na compra dessa porta. Tá faltando uns 40 centímetros na altura.
Mano, vocês estão vendo isso, mano? Caralho, mano. Caralho, mano. Que cara sensacional, mano. Por que vende pneu na porra do boneco? Tá devendo 4 charradas. Não. Tava rindo do mesmo vídeo. Pô, porque esse aqui é muito bom, mano. Já vou seguir. O cara foi no bar do Pisca. E é cheio de frase. Tipo, o Cazuza, o Pisca e eu tava contando mentira.
2, segunda temporada da série Bares pelo Mundo. É o review do Chico Raiz. Hoje cheguei de Caravan Surf. E brinquei com o Kubanacan. Sim, o Engonoso de Papu. Vou apresentar pra vocês o Bar do Dido. Ali no bairro Cooper Campos, em Anita Garibaldi. Assim que entrei porta dentro, me deparei com este ambiente em desesquadro. E com foro sistema Wave, ou Onda, pra ti que não fala inglês. Ainda bem que eu vim de prancha. Já pedi a especialidade da casa. Quem me atendeu foi meu tocaio, Chico.
Esses vídeos, cara, eu sou muito bom.
Me apresentou o bugio. Cachaça com melado, canela e bergamota. Praticamente um suplemento alimentar. Na sequência, fui interagir com a turma. Nessa mesa, o assunto foi inteligência artificial, sistemas integrados de gestão. Com esse outro guri, falamos de medicinas orientais. Esse guri com cabelo do valente...
Caralho, como assim?
De copa é o Dido. O assunto ali foi
olha
sorte por dinheiro. O amuleto do Dido é esse guiso de cascavel. Mostrou esse de 6 anos e esse outro de 15 anos.
O cara coleciona sino de cascavel.
O Dido tava maroto, me assustou na pegadinha. Ah, mas vamos pegar outro. Esse é de 6 anos, esse outro de 15. Abre ali, guri. Ó que pegamos o guri também. Vou fazer um desses aí pra mim. Não?
6 anos.
Vou pegar outro. Esse é de 6 anos, esse outro de 15. Abre ali, guri. Ó que pegamos o guri também. Vou fazer um desses aí pra mim. Não contente, o Dido me mostrou o beldo. Eita não, pinga sim, normal. Mas aí me pediu pra soprar o bafômetro, pulei. A mim tu não pega mais, guri. Depois das pegadinhas. Aí me pediu...
Esse do bafômetro eu nunca vi.
Pra soprar o bafômetro, pulei. A mim tu não pega mais, guri.
Não entendi o
Mais,
bafômetro.
guri. Depois das pegadinhas eu encontrei o Lucianinho Périco da Gaúcha. O assunto ali foi dupla Grenal. Quando que vão beliscar um campeonato brasileiro? Em 2100, talvez. Não sabemos. Na passada me chamou a atenção esses buracos aí que foi feito no Foro Waves, que foi uma pequena desavença no passado. Já que tava ali, de curioso, Dido, por que da escolha dessa engenharia em desesquadro? O pedreiro eu acho que conferia com as vistas fechadas. Quem foi o pedreiro? Ah, foi tu então, desculpa. O bar do Dido conta com um mostruário de doces rotativo da Mormai. Será que a Mormai faz baleiro também? Vou ter que me comprar um. Ó uma lata de escola da época que o Tarcísio Meira era adolescente ainda. Ó o Inter de Anitta, Brutus na zaga e Chitãozinho de centro médio. Ó um pergaminho com marcações de cacheta da época que a Cecília Meirelles estava na nota de dinheiro ainda. Achei essas obras do Romero Brito de Anitta também. Com projetos do Lata Velha. Solicitei mais um elixir e quase bati com a cabeça.
Um elixir?
Cabeça na onda aí, ó. Fiz umas compras, boneca Cindy, lixa, ovo de codorna e um edredom. E liguei uma música.
Isso é boa. Isso aqui com uma jaqueta no lado, uma calça branca.
Na passada achei esse troféu misterioso, Bar do Dido Destaque Geral. Será que foi avaliado mundialmente? Ah, a pesquisa foi dos Mundial. Concorda, Lucianinho? Comprei um avião desses Kinder Ovo também, que sempre é uma surpresa. Presta fogo aí, claro, guri. Você veio com chama extra. E agora vamos por review ou análise pra ti que não fala inglês. Mostruário de doces da Mormai.
Ah, vai se fuder o bordão do cara.
Conta ponto. Espantal
review, análise.
Gordo com adesivo, conta ponto. Forro em PVC, sistema Wave, conta ponto.
Eu disse, foi mal.
No olho aqui uns 10 centímetros fora de esquadro, conta ponto. Bidu, conta ponto. Freezer pros dócimos com os detalhezinhos de lata, conta ponto. Parede com malemolência, conta ponto. Troféu de reconhecimento mundial, conta ponto. Certificado comprovando isso, conta ponto. Por final fui acertar edredom mais ovo de codorna.
Edredom e ovo de codorna.
Etc. Ficou em R$150. E eu indico, Bardo.
Olha o tamanho do cara. O cara batendo a cabeça no teto, mano.
Dido, que merece o selo de bar raiz de qualidade do Shauxixa Advisor.
Ele é o Shauxixa Advisor. Tá. É interessante. Ó, é saideira, hein? Saideira. Próxima risada eu me enfio dentro de um cobertor e durmo.
Exemplo, vai com Deus. Vai lá.
Tá, isso que eu já vi.
É cansado, não dá pra ficar segurando ele, não.
Tá cansado.
Cansado, não dá pra ficar segurando ele, não. Não morreu, não.
Olha lá, vai virar.
Vai virar, não morreu, não. Ele tá cansado, tá muito cansado. Não morreu, não.
O cara mandou 4 Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V. Não morreu, não. Tá cansado. Mano, deve ter virado, né? Ó, ele tá mexendo na boca. Esse pai ele só tá virado mesmo. Exemplo. Ele é exemplo, pô. Ele é exemplo. Vai, vamos lá. Vamos seguir. Saideira.
Você olha para, como disse o Cristiano Quioca, né? Você olha para uma janela de apartamento, você vê aquele mar de prédio de São Paulo, você pensa assim, cada janelinha dessa é um IPTU. O Estado é Deus, o Estado é um grande ídolo, tem que alimentar. Ele tem que esmagar a população e ela que se vire, trabalhe, se mate. Você tem segurança, ô desgraçado? Você tem segurança? Não tem segurança, porque o governo, ele gosta de bandido. Ele solta bandido.
Rio, não ri, mano. Só tô sorrindo.
Bandido, não pode encostar no bandido, coitadinho do bandido. Aí o que você faz? Você contrata a segurança privada, caríssimo, guarda patrimonial. Aí você, porra, eu não tenho dinheiro pra comprar uma guarda patrimonial, não sou rico, não posso ter segurança. Bom, vou comprar uma arminha. Aí vem o maldito sapão saindo das gosmas lamacentas, pútridas e miasmáticas ao inferno. Chamado Flávio Dino, e não deixa o cidadão ter arma. Por quê? Porque o cidadão de bem não pode ter arma. Quem pode ter arma é bandido, vagabundo, comunista. Crime organizado, esses podem ter arma. O cidadão de bem não pode ter arma. A moça que trabalha no caixa da farmácia e volta...
Caralho, sem cortar, mano. O vídeo inteiro sem cortar.
Isso faz faculdade...
Não, mas eu não ri não. Não fiz som.
De contabilidade à noite e volta pra casa às 11h30 da noite, ela não pode ter arma. É muito perigoso que esta mocinha tenha arma. Quem tem arma É o PCC, o Comando Vermelho, aí tá tudo bem. Coitadinho, eles são bandidinhos vítimas da sociedade. Você entendeu? O PCC e o Comando Vermelho são vítimas
Bardo
da
pisca,
mocinha
não
que
morreu não.
trabalha,
Não, pô.
estuda. Desgraçado! Que Jesus volte e amaldiçoe vocês, petistas malditos! Todos!
É o que acontece quando tá vazio e
Todos
quietinho aqui, mano.
arder, arder, arder pra sempre! E Jesus não vai resgatar vocês do inferno, vocês vão arder!
Caralho, o cara castou a spell. Send to hell. Amaldiçoou todos os suspetistas. Jogos, influência, violência, jogadores, Just Dance.
Para de ligar, Ronaldinho, filho da puta! Ah, não, caralhudo! Vou te pegar na porrada, filha da... Tu tá fudido! Deixa eu parar de dançar! Tá começando a me arrastar com a tua alma, seu filho da puta! Tá fudido, seu merda! Caralho! Anão desgraçado! Vou te pegar na porrada quando eu chegar! Quando eu chegar no Rio de Janeiro, eu vou te meter a porrada! Seu filho da puta!
O cara tá dançando certinho.
Vou dar os boa noite simplão. Mano, pelo jeito eu logo vou também, tá ligado? Tipo, mas vai lá, querida, boa noite. O tanto que ele fica insanamente bravo é muito engraçado. Quem fica bravo? Eu não fico bravo.
Mano, então é isso. Nossa, eu tô até anestesiado. Mano, eu me sinto quando termina a live assim, tipo, de não pode rir, dando um shot de vodka, mano.
Você viu o Workplace? O W-Place? Não. Do que tu tá falando, pia? Nossa. Foda. E aonde você postou? Foda. Nunca viu? Não. Você é louco, pesquei um pouco. Eu fiz isso na localização da minha casa, que nem no Our Place. É o mapa mundo onde você pode desenhar. Ah, tá, já vi isso sim, mano. Nossa, nossa. Não, eu já vi. Eu vi esses dias. Só que assim, eu não vou fazer, pelo menos não onde eu moro, pra não me doxar, tá ligado? Tipo, pô, vou dar meu endereço pra geral assim, é meio foda, né? Sei lá, né? Sei lá. Pois é, então. Pois é, em live, não espere que eu interaja com esse site. Em live, pelo menos. Tá porra. Xixi. Eita. Mas eu acho que não de nada. O quê? De qualquer forma, boa noite. Mas já, querida, não. Vou continuar aparecendo periodicamente. Apareça mais, cara. Você aparece tão pouco, mano. Tão pouco. Porra, e o unicórnio apareça mais, mano. Não é meme. Ah, na real, eu vou deixar a live aberta. Deixa, mano. Daqui a pouco eu fecho, daqui a 1 hora, menos talvez. Eu vou escutar um vídeo em inglês agora. A única coisa aí que talvez vocês não curtam mais, né? Aparecerá. Aparecerá. Soro. Apareça.
Oh man, these benzos really hit you. 1 second I'm in my cell and now I'm in this room, wherever this is. Seems like I need a key to open that door. Hey, if I can actually get out of here, I'm not gonna complain. Looks like I've got some time to kill, and so will you with this exciting new product from today's sponsor. Come on, Mr. Beast gets advertisers and he hunts homeless people for sport. Condemned Criminal Origins, another Monolith game. Sort of like Fear's weird cousin, because it's made on the same engine, came out the same year on Xbox 360 and then the next year on PC. But this game is nothing like Fear, because it has no slow motion and you don't go around shooting things very much. This is like an actual survival horror game, not a game where you survive mind-controlled soldiers and makes this noxious odor. It's a game where you survive mind-controlled portals and pick up dead birds. Wait, what? But it certainly doesn't have a protagonist that has supernatural abilities he got from some vaguely explained experiments. Oh, we got that too? We got some of that? Okay, but the gunplay sucks, although that's by design. Condemned is a melee-focused game, published by Sega, though there's a WB Games logo in front of this, so we're not out of the woods yet. See, the Monolith crew at the time were working with a new version of their engine, LiftTech Jupiter EX, and I'm guessing that they started work on Condemned before Fear shipped, but they knew Fear was going to be good, right? What kind of sick asshole hates Fear? So Jace Hall and Nathan Hendrickson, the former being friggin' Chernobog and the latter being a Monolith level designer who worked on AVP2, yes, we will get to it one day, it's top-tier Monolith. Well, these two had an idea to make a different kind of first-person horror game that was influenced by gritty serial killer movies like Silence of the Lambs and Seven. That's right, kids, they put on their long legs and dipped into the world of real horror. Not like the pulpy camp horror of Blood or the soul-crushing violation of my hopes and dreams, Blood 2. Don't get me wrong, Condemned is a touch undercooked, a bit fucking raw, but not like Blood 2. I can actually understand why people enjoy Condemned. I don't hate it. Katie, no, please, I do not. Don't tell the kids that. I do not hate Condemned. I hate Condemned Criminal Origins. Oh god, this is gonna be worse than the Will Rock debacle. I've played Condemned once before, back when it came out, and I couldn't run it when I first got it because my graphics card didn't support Pixel Shaders 2.0, so I don't really remember much. I remember being chased through a farmhouse and sometimes being scared. When I booted this up back in the day, a bunch of crap was missing and I waited until I had access to a better computer to play it because I didn't have an Xbox 360. But my friends who had them all told me the same thing. I had to send this piece of shit back to Microsoft and get it replaced because it got the red ring of death. They didn't play Condemned. Getting Condemned to run properly on modern systems is also a bit of a hassle. You need some fixes from the PC Gaming Wiki for widescreen and 4K, and a couple of other issues that we'll talk about later. This is the entry fee for playing anything on PC from before 2010. The introduction gives us some gritty, ominous stills from crime scene reports before showing Ethan Thomas, our player character and FBI serial killing investigator, pulling up in this admittedly graphically impressive little scene. Remember, it's 2005. This is as pretty as games got. See, he's got an earpiece that's... I guess the wire is run through his head? Shut up, commenters. He looks like he's got a bolt in his head.
Thomas.
Ah, okay, first jump scare of the game. Pretty effective. Oh, this fucking bloom. I'm trying to leave it on for the experience, but... ugh.
People are scared. We need to get this one.
As opposed to the serial killers we don't need to catch. This is your walk speed.
I'm getting too old for this.
I have a feeling I'm not gonna like the writing in this game.
I'm getting too old for this shit.
You gotta crouch to get under the tape.
Oh, okay, thanks. How do I right. It's one of those kinds of games where you press use to do anything. No jump, no crouch, just use.
Come on, let's go. Body's rotting as we speak.
Then you should let me walk faster.
The patrolman on duty said there was a mannequin involved, just like the matchmaker. Whole damn city's crawling with sick killers. God, and why do they always have to kill in such maggot-infested dumps? Why can't they pick a nice spot without addicts and gang members for once? Someplace not so damn dark. Jesus H. Nearly shot the bastard.
A real cop would have mag dumped. Look at the size of that rat.
Come on, this place is creeping me out.
Right, okay. The real horror in this game comes not just from how slow you move, but from how slowly you walk upstairs. Characters in Condemned take stairs like a Belmont. You know, slowly, carefully, gingerly. But you can see the models take every step, and that's worth something. I guess. Not to Sega, who nuked this series after the second game and may have canceled a movie adaptation, but to us, the players. We're led into the crime scene, and I'm no forensics expert, but that looks like a dummy.
Sick bastard.
Oh. We get a call from Lieutenant Rosa, our lab tech, who will help us do the crime scene analysis during our adventure. Don't get too excited, it's pretty simple. Press button, focus on thing, press button again, listen to some exposition. Yeah, this is still a dummy.
Just a sec. Strangled by hand. Very forceful. Finger marks clear, except bruise intensity indicates the killer's right-handed, and missing the index finger on that hand.
I don't think I need a lab tech for this.
There must be something more. Something we're not seeing.
Alright, time to get out the— oh, Jesus, what the hell? Ethan is having a psychic vision, which tells him to get Rosa to tell him to run a laser light over the crime scene. You select the laser light by pressing the tool button. Condemned has a very efficient control scheme where you press the tool button to take out whatever tool you need at the time, because Ethan is psychic.
It's the work of a guy we've been calling the matchmaker. Kills young women violently, poses them in grisly tableau with male department store mannequins. Mannequin always slightly disfigured by a mark on the face.
Cool. Very Red Dragon.
Becker, no smoking at a crime scene. I don't smoke. Well, someone was.
Oh God, we got a killer. Let's go.
It's coming from in here.
Opa, pesquei de novo. Tem alguém vendo a live? Não, né? Tem ninguém online, né, também, caralho. Porra. Não tem ninguém vendo a live. Dá um espectador, mas mistério.
I can smell the cigarette smoke.
Mistério.
So as a detective, I go and look at the ash— oh, no, wait, never mind.
He's right above us. Call for backup now. Becker and I will head up the fire escape. You wait here for backup. Shit. Okay, now he's playing with us. Change of plans. Becker, secure that door. Thomas, check out the building and get these lights back on.
Now the game begins properly, as you have to search this building for the fuse box to turn the lights back on. You've got a gun, but this is a misdirection, because guns are somewhat rare and occasionally useless.
Oh yes, the city's full of them now, Thomas. Addicts, vagrants, psychotic individuals gone terribly bad. They come in all kinds.
I've somehow stumbled into the projects from Death Wish 3, and this game doesn't give you a machine gun, but you've also got a kick. God, I love the mid-2000s. It was such a special time. One thing Condemned does perfectly is atmosphere. I think it looks a little better than Fear, and the way rooms are decorated and laid out feels a bit richer than Fear's office buildings. If you see a bunch of eyes drawn on the wall, you'll also find a collectible piece of metal. Along with the metal scraps, you also collect birds. Dead birds, and what look like soon-to-be dead birds. I've only got 9 bullets in my magazine, and that's all I'll get. You don't pick up extra ammo for weapons, and there's no reloading. You have to manually check the mag to see how much ammo you have, which I don't hate. It's not a bad mechanic for a survival horror game. You can use shift to sprint, which lets you run. Very very slowly. Movement in Condemned is wildly different than what you might be used to because it's deliberately slow, clunky, and awkward, like piloting a human mech. I finally find that cigarette in front of the fuse box, but I needed a psychic vision to tell me it was there. But when I turn the power on, I get electrocuted and this creepy guy grabs my gun. This seems like enough to deem Ethan completely unfit for duty, and he's taken off the case. Okay, well, the gun only has 5 bullets in it, and it can only hit something reliably if you're within melee distance, because that's kind of how you have to balance a game that focuses on melee combat, which Condemned does, and now it's going to teach you how it works, which is simple like the rest of the game's controls. I grab a pipe off the wall and get to see some stats. They help you determine the strengths and weaknesses of each weapon, helpfully comparing to the one you're currently carrying. You thought a 2-weapon limit was bad. Ethan can't carry more than 1 pipe. My first fight does not go well. I don't have the hang of the blocking yet, but this thug helps me out by accidentally hitting his friend. But look at everything going on. Your enemies are smashing into physics objects, hitting ceiling lights. It's really quite well done in terms of immersion. I found this game a bit easy because there's health seemingly everywhere. As a mostly linear game, they put health in areas knowing you probably will never visit them again. I want to go further, but a door prevents me from doing so. I need a fire axe? Don't you mean—
I need a key.
Yeah, this axe was just in the wall. It's not doing anything to this door. What about a key? What about kicking the door in like that other cop who had arthritis and couldn't walk good? Yeah, this guy.
We heard an explosion.
Yeah, I'm fine. It's just a fuse box shorted. I seem to be trapped over here, and I believe the suspect has my gun.
Dear God, he lost his gun? Oh my, I can't.
Here, take this fire axe and chop your way out.
There we go. Now you're speaking my language. To chop down a door, you have to hit it with an axe. But not anywhere, just where the prompt tells you it's the proper place, and you have to swing twice. He also tells me to use my taser to stun targets, which is probably the most effective weapon in the game. It practically auto-aims and is nearly instant. It takes about 10 seconds to recharge, but still, MVP of the game, especially later. You can usually stun in 1 hit with a powerful weapon like the axe. You can usually stun in 1 hit with a powerful weapon like the axe. Because this killer, who we'll call Killer X, is a lot stealthier than Paxton Fettel, and our hero doesn't have convenient psychic visions to tell him what's happening at the moment.
How does it feel to be on this end of the gun?
Pretty familiar, actually.
Listen, you bastard. Don't mess this up for us. We are both on the same path of righteousness.
Thomas!
And the path takes strange turns.
Freeze! Police! Drop the weapon now!
God, these cops are terrible.
Be ready for death, Agent Thomas. It shall come visiting again.
Why not just shoot him now?
You keep out of this. He doesn't have to shoot you now. He does so have to shoot me now. I demand that you shoot me now.
Now, he pushed me out a window when I fall 3 stories onto a car, which is not fatal. Ethan just has to sleep it off. I assume, like Fox Mulder, he doesn't have a bed. Get into the comments telling me about the water bed in Monday, kids.
I know I'm not supposed to have water, but I don't know what to tell you.
Ups. Tem alguém assistindo aí? Assistindo eu cair no sono, basicamente. Eu zoei o controle, será? Vamos ver. Não. O Foda Games.
I'm sorry.
Ai, minhas costas.
Oops, my mistake. He had a bad dream. He doesn't seem to immediately notice the man sitting across from him.
Who are you? What is going on?
I might catch some heat for this, but Ethan's voice acting leaves a little to be desired.
Calm yourself. My name is Malcolm Van Horn. I was a great friend of your father's.
Okay, Condemned, why don't you introduce me properly to this character before bringing up any more, huh?
Yes, I remember you a long time ago, but why are you here now?
Last night? Well, I was nearby. An unfortunate scene. You did your best, but it could not be helped.
What do you mean?
The detectives.
They're dead. Shot with your weapon. And you will be blamed for their deaths.
Oh, yeah, right.
Ridiculous. I'll just tell them.
What? Tell them the truth?
Yeah, just tell them that you suck as an FBI agent and you don't check your corners properly.
Starling, where's your danger area?
In the corner, sir.
Did you check the corner?
No, sir.
That's the reason you're dead.
This is insane. I can't just give up the Bureau.
It's already been taken from you. Now join me and help yourself.
Oh, what's that?
Open up, it's the police.
Damn.
Van Horn, with no real explanation of anything going on, even though he clearly knows more than he's saying, but that doesn't really matter, we gotta run from the cops now. And Killer X is just chilling across the street.
I am here to help. Now go.
Was my dad a cop? Were you a cop? Are you a cop now? Did you save me from that car and fix the horrible spinal injury I must have gotten? There's no time to explain anything because the writing in this game is slapdash at best and a collection of serial killer movie tropes thrown in a blender at worst. Celestial observer and puppeteer of the delicate strings holding reality together, John Carmack, was once quoted as saying,
"Story in a video game is like story in a porno. It's expected to be there, but it's not that important."
I think that's totally untrue of a game that has a narrative focus. That's right, I think John Carmack is wrong. But please don't let that get back to him. So yeah, now we're on the run from the police. This won't factor much into gameplay, because you don't fight police in this game. You fight vagrants and weirdos and little mutant things. But first, I have to open this gate with a code. Did I say a code because I meant a shovel? This doesn't fit in the keyhole, so we go into the tunnels and send some evidence to the lab.
Thank God. I thought they would have suspended my lab access.
Yeah?
They still might. It hasn't occurred to them yet.
I didn't kill those guys.
I know, Thomas. Well, I'm not certain what I do or don't know, but I'm pretty sure I still trust you. And that goes a long way.
Man, I wouldn't trust the FBI to find a stereo thief in a crack house. Someone's been stalking Ethan and taking pictures of him. They left evidence around. It occurs to me that this video, and lots of my videos, are front-loaded with this kind of stuff. And this video is no different because Condemned spends a lot of time setting things up before the player's sent to do a lot of the same things over and over. Mapes. He was here. Van Horn calls you again to tell you almost nothing.
But I am innocent.
I know that. You must prove that. One more thing. You have a special talent, a gift that very few of us have. We haven't time to discuss this fully, but...
Yeah, that's pretty much what you can say about the story of this game, but it's not about that. It's about the atmosphere, which is great. The vibes are impeccable. But I submit to you, dear viewer, that this game is the jankiest game since the dark times of Blood 2 and Shogo. Like I said before, it's not really bad like those games are, but... yeah. The slow movement and slower stair climbing is deliberate and helps you feel more vulnerable as a player. This is important and I think somewhat influential on the first-person survival horror game genre. If you want to see another game kind of like this, go look at Frictional's Penumbra series from a couple of years later. That company had then refined that into stuff like Amnesia. Condemned might not have been the first game to do it, but it seems like it was the most popular game at the time in that particular niche. I'm a little more forgiving of some of these design choices because they're usually effective. However, I'm always saying, Jesus Christ, can we please move a little faster? I get to the door that has a padlock on it and it says sledgehammer required. See? Nothing. I have a crowbar. I can't get a padlock off with a crowbar? What about a fucking key? I can open a padlock with a goddamn rock. I'm still hot on the trail of Killer X, finding the room he's been using to spy on me before he attacks me in a vision or a dream or something.
What you done?
Oh, that's a graphics bug. Okay, let me go figure this out. I turned particle effects down to medium to get them to actually show up, and to prove it, here's an effectively creepy scene. Cool. I'm still going around collecting dead birds, as most sane people do. You guys have no idea how hard I had to fight this thing. I hope it tastes good. I won't say there's no fun to be had, because that's just not true. Combat can be quite fun. Like this guy here, coming at me with an axe. I've already got an axe, but...
You want this, don't you, pig?
This is even more fun when they've got guns. And the combat is fairly easy. Like, I don't need to know how to block that effectively because there's health everywhere. The thing about checking corners doesn't really help me because sometimes the game just screws you over with a guy coming out of thin air. Cheap? Absolutely. I'd have been mad if the next section wasn't a highlight of this game and gave me a really good idea what the designers were trying to achieve. You're chasing serial killer X and hop on the back of this subway train, the handle coming off and now in your hands as a weapon. Trapped on this tiny ledge, the train speeding faster than your average video game train, all the effects happening with the brakes and the sparks and the sound design, my god, the sound design. When a goon finally jumps onto the train, it feels electric. His animation is perfect, and he knocks you around a little so you feel like you're barely hanging on to this speeding subway car. Killer X smashes the window with a fire extinguisher and pushes you off, and now the glass on that door is intact again, so this moment of pure scripted 2000s perfection has sadly ended.
That's right, it's fucking wrong!
Back off the train, we are again stuck in some underground steam tunnels. It's not a sewer, I'm gonna be very picky about this. Today, we meet what you'd think would be the creepiest enemies in the game until you realize they go down with a taser shock or one hit from a weapon. Get that weak shit out of here. In terms of mid-2000s scripted sequences, this one's also pretty good, introducing a bigger enemy by showing him taking out smaller enemies. Oh, come on! This big guy isn't so tough. That's the strongest enemy type you're gonna face until the final level. Like I said, there's lots of health lying around in cabinets and stuff, so you can shit! Okay, Condemned, you're scary, I take it back! I know there are finishing moves too, but the timing and aiming is so finicky on them that I don't pull them off that much. A swing or a kick is easier. The blocking mechanics are a little weird to me still, like I can block, and the enemies can block, but sometimes it feels like it doesn't work so good for either of us. We do some light detective work to find the plaster from these mannequins that the matchmaker uses. Yeah, he's still somewhere in this game. He's hidden more mannequin parts in a subway train, and I have to examine those too so I can find out they come from Bart's department store. Not this arm, though, with the clearly readable Bart's on the arm, the other arm. That's our next stop, and we have to run back through the tunnels to get back to the train platform so we can go back there and find something fun to do. The combat is fun enough, but you're doing the same thing for every enemy throughout the entire game, so there isn't much variety. Ethan takes a break to have a conversation with his boss.
Yeah.
Thomas, it's Farrell. Running from the Bureau will do no good. You know we'll find you eventually. Look, I understand. The caseload became too much. You weren't solving cases like you used to. You're talented, high-strung. You snapped. It happens sometimes.
Farrell is a guy from the FBI who I don't think you ever talk to again, and he's here to tell you that the caseload became too much. You weren't solving cases like you used to. You're talented, high-strung, you snapped. The kind of stuff you put in the beginning of your story, possibly by having a scene showing that Ethan is having some trouble doing his investigations, like maybe he presses the tool button and takes out the wrong thing. This game is written badly. The devs are hoping you don't notice by having Ethan hallucinate a creepy monster and sending you to... Oh, come on, we all remember the department store. I played it once almost 20 years ago, and I remember the department store. Oh, that's just lovely. Absolutely killer shit, Monolith, because now I'm eyeing every mannequin in this department store, wondering if it'll suddenly try to kill me. Rosa tells me that she's got evidence of 2 different suspects running around and that the killer I've been almost killed by twice isn't the matchmaker at all.
Blood droplet size and dispersal pattern indicate victim sustained a heavy blow. Height of blood on wall indicates it's possibly a head wound.
Hey, what are you doing, lady? I'm detecting over here. How do you get downstairs so fast?
You're dead.
Okay, yeah, that's the one. That's the scariest moment of this game. Sir, I am investigating. I am an honest officer of the law. We find a dead matchmaker with a female mannequin in a changing room. He's missing a finger, just like we figured, and he's got traces of pesticides on him. I wonder if that'll lead to that little farm town we heard about earlier. Not yet, but it leads me to finding out about the grapple mechanic in this game, which sucks shit. I'm gonna be blunt about it. Swinging the mouse around to escape is awful and disorienting. I imagine it was probably a bit better on consoles with an analog stick. These jerk-offs grab you and start sapping health until you can get them off. The police show up, so it's time to leave. Rosa calls back and says this new guy, this new killer, Killer X, is not the matchmaker, and also not a charming-sounding fellow named the Torturer, but the matchmaker was killed using his own methods.
This guy goes around and kills the killers in the same way that they're killing the innocent. He's like an Uber killer, a serial killer X, a perp not on your original case list.
An Uber killer. Okay, game. There's no facial animations tied to this line. It would have been so easy to replace it. After a quick jaunt through the alleyways and a ride in a dumpster that wishes it was as exciting as that train ride, but when your objectives say, survive the runaway dumpster, it undercuts the horror in your horror game a little. After that, we head to the library to meet up with Rosa. She's in the basement. I think this is the wrong floor.
I used my security clearance to do a little checking up on you. I found this folder in your supplemental personnel file.
Wait, I have to open the folder? Just do it in the cutscene. Rosa tells Ethan that he's exceptionally strong, resilient, has a brain abnormality, and there's an X-ray that has a blacked out section of his chest, which probably means...
Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey.
No, it just means he has psychic powers, and I'm told the chest thing is explained later. In Condemned 2.
Oh, and I also left something there on the counter for you. Popular modification to the standard taser.
Oh. Oh, no, that's good. We go to look up information on the torturer in the library database, which is apparently better than the FBI database that hints towards classified programs involving psychic detectives.
Damn it. Can anything else go wrong?
Uh-huh.
Well, Thomas, you're certainly not as much help as I thought you would be. I'd expected so much more from you. I was thinking...
Rosa! Rosa, are you there?
I'm sure she's fine. Anyway, this new taser knocks people right down and disarms them. All it took was, I guess, 6 AA batteries strapped to it. The game starts sending in the heavies now. A lot more armed goons than before, who seem strangely resistant to being hit with a shotgun blast. Cheap motherfucker. I do some IT work to get the network back online, which shows someone accessing something in the rare books room. Rose is fine, though.
Back off, you bastard. Come any closer and I'll rip your head off.
Yeah, she's okay. She did help Killer X look up some info on the torturer and your case list, so that's probably not good.
A retired gym teacher from the city's juvenile rehabilitation program has informed police of contact he had almost 8 years ago with a troubled youth named Carl Anderson, who reported fantasies that matched the torturer's methods exactly.
Carl Anderson. A gym teacher tells the cops on you, and now the teacher can't be found. Okay, Rosa, we have to find the school where this teacher worked.
And even if nothing else in this game was awkwardly written and delivered, standing over someone watching a non-full-screen video on a web browser that plays a publicly available news story that gives us our next clues in the mystery, when you're in the FBI and should absolutely have better information on hand if there's a news broadcast about it, just... let's move on. But first I'm turning off the bloom. It's disgusting. No kidding, we have to go downstairs and read another screen to find out where the school is, which Killer X eavesdrops on, so he knows too. Man, the FBI is bad at this. It's off to find the torturer because he was turned in by a gym teacher who noticed that this troubled youth he was mentoring was doing weird stuff like maybe, I don't know, playing with dead birds. See, the torturer, his MO is to torture people. He does this until they can't take it anymore and they off themselves. Grisly stuff that'll get this video demonetized, I can almost guarantee. We find the gym teacher's lips on a chalkboard and Mapes!
Waiting for you!
Mapes, you son of a bitch, I've been looking for you! We find the gym teacher's arm on a basketball hoop, and then we find Ethan's body. Wait, what?
Thomas speaking.
Thomas, I just wanted to make sure you met me out front when we were done. I didn't want to interfere with the investigation, but...
And then Ethan, don't give your character 2 first names, you... Ugh. It's a hallucination. You'd be able to tell better if I hadn't turned the bloom off. At least I pick up the best gun in the game, this rifle. Nice and accurate. There's a moment when you find the gym teacher which would pay off better if we hadn't seen this in a psychic vision earlier.
Help me.
Oh yeah, that's the stuff.
Help is on the way. Who did this to you?
Carl Anderson.
Okay, but the way he says it because he has no lips, it's a little funny, right?
Carl Anderson.
The torturer. Okay, take it easy. Do you know where he is now?
Other man came to Carl away.
Never mind, we're right back to creepy. But then he falls over and dies.
Rosa, send an EMT immediately. Cancel it.
Conveniently, he also had a shovel with him, so I can open this door. After a cool hallucination inside of an empty pool that's nice, very creepy, good job, we have some kind of episode and wake up somewhere different. You'd think something would come of this lost time in the story, but nah. Van Horn is here to help. Just like he said in that phone call that I assumed was a hallucination, making me think Van Horn was a hallucination because we haven't seen anyone interact with him. We heard him being questioned by police earlier, but nah, he's real. He gives us a ride to that farm we traced the pesticides back to. Good job, Rosa, you're the real hero here. It's time to wrap up this case, get all our questions answered.
So why are you in on this?
He asks with the same tone he'd ask someone why they're also involved in his fantasy football league.
I have a sense of responsibility. I needed to help.
Help? You mean with my investigation?
Yes, among other things.
Jesus Christ, come on.
There was a time I thought I was the best investigator the Bureau ever had. Now it seems they were interested in me for other reasons.
What do you mean?
I saw my file. Apparently I'm some sort of circus freak to them.
That may not be helpful. I wonder how much they know of what is happening.
I can answer that. Nothing. They know nothing. I know nothing.
I would stay away from the Bureau as long as I could.
It's not like I have much choice, since they still think I killed those 2 officers.
Their deaths were unfortunate, but maybe it's best this way.
Best? You seem to know a lot more about what's happening than you're letting on.
This man is a special investigator for the FBI.
But I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry.
No time to tell us what's happening. We gotta get to the farmhouse for what is actually quite spooky. For a while. See, you have to follow these trails you can only see with your special forensic tools. They reveal a message. The dark path. Hey, get out of here. Federal agent. Important shit. To righteousness. Okay. Beyond which you, see yourself to be. Oh, goddammit, stop it, I'm detecting over here.
A clue, perhaps.
So, the dark path to righteousness is beyond which you can see yourself to be. It means I have to open this mirror, which I found long before I found all the clues, leading me to looking around the basement a lot. The basement has respawning enemies that'll harass you the whole time. However... Hey, buddy, you okay? You got problems with stairs, too? Behind the mirror is a secret room where you can tell this killer is very interested in Ethan. Why? Because they kind of have the same job now, especially since Ethan isn't really working with the FBI anymore.
I can't take this anymore. My ears. My hands.
Oh, sounds like we got the torturer. But oh no, Killer X pushes a piano down the stairs, which is an insurmountable obstacle until I get another axe. I have to fight some goons until one of them brings me an axe. This is one of those things that I feel brings Condemned down a little. The atmosphere is scary, but the gameplay feels so artificial and gamey at times that it sucks the life out of it. When I do finally get up there, I get a psychic vision of the torturer impaling himself several seconds before I find the torturer impaled. Meaning that Ethan's psychic abilities are actually getting less useful as the game goes on. But he's got a plan, right? Which is a stupid plan in that he's gonna put on the torturer's clothes and pretend to be him to fool Killer X. Bad disguises and falling pianos, we have gone full Looney Tunes. As a setup to a tense scene where you're watching the reflection of Killer X in the TV waiting to make a move, outstanding. If I had any control over this whatsoever, I'd be pretty invested. As it stands, now I have to do battle against Killer X.
So sad. Now. You shouldn't have come here.
Okay, screw the fire poker. Well, I'm out of ideas. Come on, it's okay. I'm not gonna hurt you. I just have a sledgehammer because I was working on the railroad. Yeah, the railroad. Get over here, you... Oh my God.
Leland, nephew, please listen to me.
No, stop. You did this for your nephew? Also, dynamite script writing. Very natural to refer to someone as nephew. Really hitting a home run with this reveal in that I don't give a shit about baseball. Your nephew has killed a bunch of people, including 2 cops, and you knew this the entire time, and let your close friend's son take the blame for it. What did you think Ethan was gonna do? Arrest him? Get him psychiatric counseling? Braid his fucking hair? Leland, our Killer X, presumably kills Van Horn. Then Ethan wakes up in a barn.
Welcome to consciousness, my friend. Though you won't enjoy it long. We were good in the beginning. But you turned out to be kind of a failure, didn't you? Huh?
Listen, I have a much higher body count than you do, man. You've been stalking me, right?
I watched you, and followed you, and used you to find the serial killers you so desperately sought, and then killed them.
Why? You could have just gone to the fucking library, apparently. He gloats for a while and cuts off your finger. But what's this? Van Horn isn't dead?
Quickly! You must find and destroy it. It has caused all this madness. Go, kill it, now.
I guess I'll know it when I see it. I grab a burning piece of wood and make it outside.
You belong to us, Ethan. You've always belonged to us.
What follows is a fairly tense combat section across this whole farm, fighting a lot of these big guys, the stronger enemies I told you would be coming. They're tough, but the 2x4 swings so fast. I get attacked once by the stick man again. There's so much health and weaponry lying around that I don't find it very challenging until stick man locks you in a barn and you have to face a small army of the ugliest of goons. Honestly, I'd do a montage of it if you hadn't already seen the combat of this game over and over. So let's pick it up at the final showdown where Stick Boy finally comes out to play for real. I have to stagger him and then do a finisher, but like I said, the finishers are finicky. They're finicky finishers. The finishers, they're finicky, Jerry. We rip something off of him, but it's too dark for me to tell what, and he jumps through the ceiling. I know I have to go face him upstairs. Oh, this'll work. You know, for a game with such good sound design, someone on the team must have said, that noise when the stick hits things is kinda dull and not very intimidating. I pull out another piece of his spine and we transport to wherever this is. Looks like they've covered up the pool finally. Good thing too, that was an accident waiting to happen. Come on. Come on, let me grab his jaw. Finally, I do away with this villain of the game. Lame boss fight, 2 out of 10. Ethan escapes the burning building and Van Horn is there to pick him up and have another heart-to-heart as they drive home.
I can never go back, can I?
No, not to the Bureau, not to your old life. Thomas, you have looked into the face of hate, the visage of evil. Know that hate is in your soul, too. It is, sadly, everywhere. Mastering one's fear and controlling one's hatred is perhaps the most difficult thing one can do.
Oh, okay, Obi-Wan. Is that why you let your nephew frame me for 2 murders? Asshole. Speaking of...
Stop the car.
No, you still don't understand. He's done unspeakable things, even though those he killed were killers themselves.
Van Horn argues that Leland was being controlled by an evil force when he murdered people, and oh no, don't you think you can just roll that Twin Peaks reference past me, Condemned?
I don't care whether the sick fuck is in his right mind or not.
Think of what you are doing! Both of you have a chance for redemption.
And he's right, even though I'm not sure what Ethan has to atone for, unless you're saying that him killing all those people to get here was wrong too, because they were getting mind-controlled. It certainly would be weird if you held off telling me something like that until the sequel. I don't know, man, I can't with this story anymore. The game gives you a choice whether to kill Leland or not, and I guess I start smashing mouse 1 too late because Leland grabs a gun and offs himself. And then Ethan is in a coffee shop meeting Rosa, who informs him that she's wired and that, his life is kinda over. She says all this stuff is related to a cult, but we don't get much information about that until the next game, which I haven't played because it was a console exclusive for some reason. And then Ethan has a jump scare hallucination and the game is over. Whether or not you kill Leland has no effect on the ending of this game, and neither does collecting all that crap that unlocks extra stuff. You handled dozens of dead birds for nothing. Alright, I found the key. You wouldn't believe it. It was inside the bird. As soon as I took a bite, cracked one of my teeth on it. So now, kids, it's onward to freedom. Oh, god fucking damn it.
After you finish a Souls game, you have questions. Why am I on fire? What's the point of locking myself in this cave? Which ending is the right one? And, of course, the age-old question, why do they call him Big Hat Logan? First, let's start with the player character. Who is the chosen undead? Well, they are who you make them. Whether you were a thief or a knight, from Astora or Katarina, it doesn't matter. What's important is that you ended up in a cell at the right place and the right time. For you head to Lordran in accordance with an old legend that speaks of a mission for a chosen undead hero. This legend is, by the way, most likely a deception by the gods, probably designed to lure powerful heroes to Lordran, but we'll get to that later. Is there a world outside Lordran? Lordran is just the land of the gods, and there is a wider world of man with many more countries therein. The fate of the world largely revolves around Lordran though, so we never go to these other places. But the characters we do meet in Lordran often hail from these foreign countries, and you can tell that they've been designed to be accurate characterizations of their homelands. What you're seeing on screen are the results of an art competition to depict these foreign places. So check out that video if you're interested, and subscribe to see the next competition really soon. How did this world come to be? Originally, the world had no disparity. Everything was just rock, from the land to the trees to the dragons. It was homogeneous, static, without beginning or end. Then, similar to the Big Bang, fire suddenly came to exist, and it disrupted this eternal monotony. Now, there wasn't just existence, but there were states of existence. Heat and cold, light and dark, life and death. The result was a rock universe gradually changing into the world as you see it in-game, including its overabundance of souls. What is a soul? So when fire came to be and permeated the universe, so did souls. Thus, the soul is the power of disparity itself. They are the means by which the first flame changed the universe, and paradoxically, they are both the fuel and the byproduct of that fire. Similar to in Demon Souls, a soul gives you clarity, allowing you to think, but also life, allowing you to be. And just as there are all kinds of life, there are all kinds of souls, of various shapes, sizes, and magical affinities. Many bosses are these special beings with special souls, and the most powerful beings are the lords, bearing lord souls. Who are the lords, and what is a lord soul? The four lords are the first kings. They were all attracted to the first flame, having only ever known darkness before coming upon it. Each one discovered this massive concentration of Disparity's power near the flame, which they then used to establish a kingdom under their rule. Thus, these massive souls are called lord souls. Of these four souls, Karth tells us that the pygmy found the dark soul, and it follows that the other Lord Souls all aligned with the other aspects of Disparity. So in contrast, Gwyn found the Light Soul, Nito found the Death Soul, and the Witch of Izalith found the Life Soul. These souls came to define them, and they would soon ally together to challenge the Everlasting Dragons. What is an Everlasting Dragon? So they're a part of the original race of dragons that predate life itself. Much like there are wyverns and worms, there are also ancient dragons, or archdragons as later games coin it. Their race is the progenitor to all other dragons' subspecies, and these are subspecies that adapted really well to a new world and new environments. You still face some archdragons in-game, but these archdragons never are the original generation of archdragons that actually predate fire. The ancient dragons are commonly described as everlasting, thanks to their stone scales of undeath granting them immortality. However, when Gwyn learned that his bolts of lightning could peel apart those scales, the lords used their full might to hunt down the archdragons to nigh extinction, ushering in the Age of Fire. What is the Age of Fire? It's the era you find yourself in. It was sparked when the lords defeated the archdragons, and even as far back as them finding their lord souls could be denoted as the dawn or beginning of the Age of Fire. So what follows is this period dominated by the lords. Much of this epoch is also denoted as the Age of Gods, since the three lords residing in Lordran with their fellow deities are on the rise or at their zenith during it. However, this golden age can only continue so long as fire at the source of the god's power remains strong. But eventually, fire will fade, and only darkness will remain. This, quote, is what Karth describes as the logic of the world. And when that happens, the gods are supposed to be replaced, and their Age of Fire is supposed to become an Age of Dark. In the original Dark Souls, you find yourself at this crossroad. The first flame is about to go out. Even now, its power is barely reaching the world of man, and what follows is a proverbial night. And in this Twilight era, the undead curse runs rampant. Okay, so, what is the undead curse? Ever since the first flame began to wane, a dark ring of fire has manifested upon the bodies of certain humans, a sign of the dark burgeoning within them. This dark sign marks you as an ageless immortal, though your endless revival comes at the cost of your own souls and sanity until you eventually hollow. What caused the undead curse? This question is at the very heart of this series, and the answer is really quite complex. You'll have a better time with this though if you're familiar with all three games. So when the world first began, a creature called the Pygmy found the Dark Soul. Who they were isn't known, nor is it really important. What is important is that they split the Dark Soul into fragments, and these fragments came to be known as humanity, which is a small black spirit found within every human. Karth refers to the furtive pygmy as your ancestor. Thus, we are descended from one of the four lords. These games frequently question whether the dark force within humans is a positive or a negative thing. Your adventure through Ulasil in the Artorias of the Abyss DLC is a great example of that. Here, the darkness within man has gone wild. It's endlessly consuming and corrupting the land and the souls of people around it. And yet, there is dialogue here that's supposed to give you pause.
I still think on that creature from the abyss that preyed upon me. My faculties were far from lucid, but I quite clearly sensed certain emotions. A wrenching nostalgia, a lost joy, an object of obsession, and a sincere hope to reclaim it. Could these thoughts belong to the beast from the abyss? But if that were true, then perhaps it is no beast after all.
This same duality is seen in the descriptions of dark magic, which are spells that are often driven by powerful emotions, positive things like love and calm, or negative things like hate and envy. But whether it's positive or negative, Gwyn's pantheon fears the dark, for one day, as we mentioned earlier, their Age of Fire is going to end, and only dark will remain. This was the logic of the world, until Gwyn committed the first sin, and he shackled the darkness within man. This was a revelation we received in the Ringed City DLC, where the seal of fire around darkness on the dark sign was finally explicitly stated to be a creation of the gods. So for some, like Manus in the first DLC, repression of their humanity causes it to writhe and go mad. However, this seal of fire was placed upon mankind so early in their existence that, for most people, their shackles are all that they know. As a result, and this is really important, humankind end up living their lives through souls that they hold completely separate from the humanity that's within them. You only have to look to the white souls of adventurers that you find in-game as proof of that. Living like this is the lie that Aldia talked about in Dark Souls 2.
All men trust fully the illusion of life. But is this so wrong? A construction, a facade, and yet a world full of warmth and resplendence. Now, Hollow, are you intent on shattering the yoke, spoiling this wonderful falsehood?
But in retrospect, the most chilling dialogue Aldia has was this.
Once, the Lord of Light banished dark and all that stemmed from humanity. And men assumed a fleeting form.
We're led to believe that the dark sign cursed humanity with undeath, but Aldia's dialogue means this can't be true. Instead, Aldia says mankind's lives became fleeting when they were branded with the dark sign. So this means that they were originally immortals, and indeed this is the state that you return to when you hollow. What is hollowing? Humanity once stood proud within every human, but when the curse was put upon them, humanity became bound, lost, and repressed. So during this Age of Fire, humanity came to rely heavily on their white soul for their sense of self, and we can see this in the names of these souls. When fire fades, the seal of fire restraining the dark grows weaker. Thus, when fire fades, it follows that our dark soul starts to break free, consuming the white soul that we've come to believe is the self, and this process of losing the self is called hollowing. Dying or losing heart, it accelerates this process. So an undead must maintain physical and mental fortitude in order to resist this process. However, as you might remember, the Hollows of Londor in Dark Souls 3 believe that their hollow states are really the most honest shape of man. This isn't an easy truth to face, especially since the Dark Soul has become this ravenous, repressed thing. To stay sane as a Hollow, one may need to drain the life of others, and the Hollows of Londor are universally reviled as a result of this. Ultimately, it just leaves you wondering whether this is really the best path for mankind, or whether it's better to just accept the shackles of the gods, or whether humanity's fate has been stolen by the curse, either way. How do we cure the undead curse? Well, curse is an actual affliction, just like poison or toxin. You can experience its build-up in-game, and what this curse does is it locks the dark soul away from the self. It's really about the barrier, it's about the separation, and the Dark Sigil explains this. It says that as humanity leaks out, the curse accumulates in exchange. Unfortunately, humans are helpless against curses, and all we can do is redirect their influence. For example, when you use a purging stone, what you're doing is not actually curing the curse, you're actually just transferring the curse to this stone, and this stone was or is another person. In the original Dark Souls, we do something similar to this process called reverse hollowing. So this is a process that requires you to have a humanity, and it's easy to assume that we're just absorbing the humanity and restoring our humanity, but what's actually happening here is kind of the opposite. Yes, a humanity sprite is taken into the self, but It then acts as a sort of surrogate for the curse, like a purging stone does, and remember, we offer this humanity up to the bonfire. This keeps our white, regular soul safe, and it prevents us from going hollow. Further proof of this dynamic exists in Dark Souls 2, where using a human effigy is just like transferring your curse to a human surrogate. And in Dark Souls 3, we found the Purging Monument, which is this enormous vessel that's overflowing with offered curses. Why did the gods curse humanity? So the logic of the world denotes that fire will fade and only dark will remain. Naturally, Gwyn feared this and managed to enforce a fleeting form upon humanity. The fate of mankind became irreversibly linked to fire, and thus the logic of the world was changed forever. What is the fire linking? It's a ritual for preserving the first flame. With the decline of fire and the rise of the dark and undeath, the gods were thrown into disarray, and the Lord's peaceful relations ultimately collapsed. Before things broke down, however, they concocted a plan to revive the first flame with a powerful soul, cultivated through firekeepers and undead bonfires. This soul would link itself to the fire, and the fire would inherit a new fuel. So Gwyn was the first to link the fire, and many others have taken up that role since then. What is a bonfire? It's your safe haven. Undead bonfires are fueled by the bones of your own kind, and they're connected to the first flame as a part of a network through coiled swords. The heat that their flames produce heal our injuries and can be collected in a liquid form called Estus. As for warping, light is tied to time in this series, so you can reason that a bonfire's light allows you to warp across time and space to other bonfires in the network. Bonfires and their firekeepers promote undead reliance upon fire, and they promote fire's reliance upon undead. Thus, the gods are almost certainly behind their creation. As for who went out and placed them in the world, it's hard to say, but it seems like they can be placed anywhere where there are undead bones, since we create one ourselves in Firelink Shrine, and even in early versions of the game, you were supposed to be able to place them yourself. However, it's important to remember that bonfires are primarily a checkpoint mechanic, and gameplay can't always be explained away by lore. For example, you might think that all undead respawn at the bonfire just like you do, but they don't. According to the Crestfallen Merchant, what actually happens is that undead will lay dead for a while and then later rise where they fell. What is a firekeeper? They're a woman who acts as the living incarnation of a bonfire in order to preserve its flame. So long as the firekeeper lives, so too does her corresponding bonfire, and vice versa. These women are thus vessels for the countless humanity that is offered to the bonfire, which means that they receive the dark spirits along with the effects of the curse in the transfer. The humanity wriggles beneath their skin, nipping at body and soul, and this causes great pain and horrific scarring, though not at extremities like the head or the hands. Firekeepers bear this suffering so that you can benefit from the bonfire, and it's through them, and by extension the bonfires, that you can strengthen your soul with whatever traits you desire. So be sure to always thank your oh shit. What is wrong with you? What is a god? Well, they're really whatever humans believe a deity to be. In most cases, the gods refers to members of Gwyn's pantheon, since they're the most widely worshipped in the world of man. But even those cast out, like Gwyn's firstborn, are still called a war god, simply because some people still worship them as such. However, just being worshipped doesn't mean that you have power. An example of this is Faris, who humans retroactively deified as the goddess of the hunt Evlana in Dark Souls 2. She was just a heroic bowwoman, but her story got twisted over the years until she became a god. People get kind of hung up on the god term because they're trying to define the race of beings that carry power in the series. For most of these characters, I quite like the term medial, which is a term proposed by Loki. What are medials? Well, many of the gods' followers and descendants aren't human, gods or giants, so we kind of have to make up a term for these beings. Medials is good. In terms of size, they're often between humans and giants, and these are beings like the daughters of Izalith, or Priscilla, and so on. What are the dead? The dead are corpses that decay without the power of life sustaining them. However, some, like skeletons, are often a product of necromancy, and there's evidence that others, like the ghosts of New Londo, become warped by the strong, lingering emotions of the deceased. What is a demon? Anything that can be loosely classified as a monster is called a demon, really. In most cases, though, demons refers to chaos demons who were born of the flame of chaos. But there are also Titanite demons, and Dark Souls 2 introduces covetous and smelter demons, as well as a demon of song. It's a common argument that a demon in Dark Souls is a chimeric creature bearing the traits of multiple animals, but this isn't a given. What could be called crow demons are actually called crowmen, or corvians. There are also snake men, maggot men, and lion men, all of whom are never called demons. Like with gods, the term is somewhat arbitrary. Basically, a demon is whatever humans would consider to be a monster. What is chaos? Chaos is the nature of fire and life. Life is rooted in the soul. The soul is a product of fire's disparity, therefore, life, like disparity, is chaotic. The Witch of Izalith found the Lord Soul that represents this, and she tried creating her own fire of life to match that of the first flame. Unfortunately, this sparked a flame of chaos, which creates and transforms new, often grotesque forms of life. These became known as the Chaos Demons, and they threatened Gwyn's rule. So you'll notice that they're stamped out at every turn in all chapters of this series. The Witch of Izalith's yearning for flame became the basis for pyromancy, and pyromancy is one of her strongest surviving legacies. What is pyromancy? Pyromancy is a physical form of magic. Pyromancers carry along with them a piece of flame that's passed down from teacher to student, stretching all the way back to the witch and her daughters, deriving the art from chaos and sharing that with the humans. Pyromancers then use that flame to conjure their spells, and despite the name, pyromancy isn't actually limited to casting fire, and it can actually conjure all kinds of elements like iron or poison. But these are rarer arts, since pyromancy is a religion that reveres flame. Just so, you can manifest pyromancies like miracles with your faith, or actually even learn to perform them like sorceries with your intelligence. What is sorcery? It's a mental form of magic. Sorcerers study the natural laws of the world to actually comprehend what they are and how they function. They then use this knowledge to manipulate their power and formulate the process as spells, which we call sorcery. They're basically magic scientists and academics, and there are sorceries from anything from souls to light to the dark of the abyss. What are miracles? They're a spiritual form of magic. You cast miracles by reciting legendary stories, which either feature the spell in question or embody what the miracle manifests. Most miracles are thereby based on the power of the Anor Londo gods, but there are also dark miracles and hexes that achieve similar results. Your faith in the story's truth makes it a reality. What is the Abyss? It's the power of the dark, and whether that's a pitch-black void, like the Realm of the Four Kings, a viscous dark swamp, like in the Ringed City, or a malformed pus, like the creatures of Lothric, the Abyss can manifest from any humanity, and it produces new life or twists old life into new forms. The Abyss is commonly unstable, and like with Manus in Ulasil, it can go wild, devouring and corrupting the souls of every other form of life. But it was not always this way. The gods placed a curse upon the Abyss, and while humans have largely lost connection with it, there are multiple sources that suggest the Abyss can offer great comfort to humankind. However, it appears that path was lost when the Abyss was banished, and now it simply hungers. What is Black Flame? Black Flame is the impenetrable fire of humanity, inspired by the power of our quote-unquote untouchable soul, in kind of a similar way to how pyromancy is inspired by Izalith's soul. What is the Deep? As the Age of Dark continues to be delayed, some dark stagnates into the deep, and here the weight of humanity sinks into a horrific abyss, like a deep sea where no light reaches. Many worship the concept of the deep, as these dregs are seen as the bedrock of the world, and you can almost view the deep as a sort of abyssal religion. Its leader, Aldrich, concluded that if the world continued to darken, then there would eventually be an age of the deep sea. Why is time convoluted? With the first flame waning, the power of light also fades, and since light is related to time, the flow of time has stagnated in a land where the flame is located. Due to this instability, time spaces known as other worlds can randomly intersect here, and this allows you to briefly meet people from long before your timeline. And with the help of magic, you can cross the gaps between worlds, usually as spirits. Why is everything in the world hostile to me? After watching this video, you'll enjoy my video talking about all the bosses of Dark Souls 3 if you've played it. I'll just list a bunch of reasons on screen though, because every enemy does have a reason for attacking you, after all. Except Priscilla. I mean, why did you hurt her? That's actually really fucked up. What is the Painted World? The first painting we're introduced to is the Painted World of Ariamis, which is hung in an Orlando. It was a place to hide all the things that the gods feared, and so it's filled with many references to sin and the occult. In the Ashes of Ariandel DLC, we learn that the paintings are a mirror of the outside world, and so are burned and reborn to mimic the linking of the fire. Just so, there are those on the inside who would prefer to let the painting rot. What is the meaning of each ending? So, in Dark Souls, you're presented with two choices after you defeat the Lord of Cinder. Either you inherit the fire and join the line of succession, preserving the current world order, or you leave the fire to die without fuel, allowing the universe to reach its natural conclusion. By becoming a Lord of Cinder, you sacrifice yourself to restore the light. By becoming a Dark Lord, you choose to lead mankind into a new dark age with an uncertain future. In Dark Souls 2, fire still wanes while the curse still flourishes. You assume a throne inside of a kiln, which takes you to the first flame and the Lord of Cinder, where you'll make one of these two choices. Turns out neither of them really matter, for the world will continue to ebb and flow between light and dark, so maybe you should heed a certain scholar's proposition instead. A new ending here is to neither rekindle nor squelch the first flame. Just simply embrace this twilight era and see what it has in store. As if to follow the consequences of this choice, Dark Souls 3 shows you a world where the future Lords of Cinder refuse to either save the Age of Fire or usher in an Age of Dark. And in the tumult that followed, you are again presented with a choice. Do you continue to link the fire, despite the ritual not being as impactful as before? Do you use the dark of the curse to subsume the flame and lead the undead into a new age as their Lord of Hollows? Do you let your firekeeper snuff out the fire and herald in the darkness, only to learn that embers survive amongst the countless lords who linked the flame before you? Or do you betray her and take what fire remains all for yourself? You are unkindled ash, after all. What is unkindled ash? These are undead who previously tried and failed to link the fire. You weren't strong enough to bear the flame that you inherited, but you weren't weak enough to stay reduced to ash either, and so you became ash, devoid of flame, but still requiring embers as well as souls to heat your cold, cursed frame. Hence, unkindled are destined to seek the fire that remains in the world. How does the series end? Well, it ends with ash, literally. As the world burns out again and again, ash itself arises. This is a new being. A new species, really, that's composed of 1,000 failures who had tried to link the fire over the years. But ash doesn't really belong in this world, and honestly, they have more in common with the beings of the Painted World instead, where all of fire's discarded things reside. So, they fight for a new purpose, to reunite the Dark Soul and paint a new world with it, so that we can finally escape this ashen wasteland that Gwyn has created. So, a slave knight called Gale, hollowed beyond belief, sacrifices himself for a new world, and the painter paints a world called Ash, a cold, dark, and very gentle place. This video is too broad. I want specifics. Join the club. subscribe, check out other creators in this space, and enjoy endless hours of content that has been made in the years before you saw this video. Before I go, I wanted to give a shout out to one of my favorite Twitch streamers, 39Daff. I watched her watch my videos after she completed Dark Souls 3, and you know, it really helped me. I felt like I really understood some of the sorts of questions that people must have after they watch my videos.
Who's the chest? Who is the big, great chest ahead?
Her confusion was why I decided to sign you all up to extra classes today, so follow her stream and thank her for that. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. When is Elden Ring being released? I actually have the answer to this one. Recently I had it leaked to me, so I figured I'd put it right at the end of the video while no one else is watching. So just quickly, don't tell anyone, the release date of Elden Ring is...
Deep down beneath the world of Dark Souls, at the heart of Lordran, is a mystery. Ash Lake. Despite all the findings so far by the Dark Souls enthusiasts, the heart of the lore may also be hidden here. How many threads and stories? How many mysteries? And how many connections meet at this lake? This is our attempt to unravel some of the subtlest lore in the game, the most ambiguous aspects of this most marvelous of games. We have tried our best, but this challenge was not wholly surmountable. Expect some speculation, expect some surprises, expect to leave curious. This is our last planned video, and we look forward to seeing what you, the lore enthusiasts, continue to unravel. There is still so much unanswered even in this game, and we hope games of the future will also manage to bring such depth as this that made us fall in love with it in the way we all did. It has been a very, very jolly time in the sun with all of you. Praise the lore. Let us begin with the location, Ash Lake. The first time we see this place is certainly not once we are masters of the game. As many of you know, the first time we lay eyes on this enigmatic location is in the introduction. When the Witches of Izalith are using their flame sorcery to attack the dragons, we see such a similar layout of ancient trees that one is almost forced to admit that we are looking at Ash Lake before it was beached with cinder. Indeed, the very presence of ash would itself imply that the battle the witches fought raged here. Specifically, one of the broken trees that can be identified matches perfectly with the broken tree we find in-game. This tells us quite a lot. Since the dragons were defeated, we can presume that the fire magic was effective, perhaps in combination with Gwyn's lightning bolts once the scales were removed. Therefore, the presence of a surviving ancient dragon in Ash Lake would be improbable if not impossible. Given the stone dragon we find is on a flammable wooden nest, it becomes very hard to believe that it was a survivor who hid in a nook of an ancient tree. We will get to that later. However, one cannot assume that nature has continued inert. We find clams, a hydra, and several other creatures in the bases of the trees. Additionally, we find a skull of some unknown creature. It could possibly be the remains of a dragon, but given the shape we find this unlikely. The ancient dragons and all of the descendants are shown to have long, snout-like structures, and it is unlikely that their skull would be shaped in this manner. We can therefore say that at the very least Ash Lake has become the home of some new creatures, and perhaps visited by others. There are, of course, famously, a number of corpses and items found in Ash Lake, and let us not forget the peculiar items dropped by some of the enemies. And, as everyone knows, to reach Ash Lake, you must navigate through hidden walls and traverse the descending roots of an ancient tree, hopefully discovering the odd pocket of abundant titanite lizards. Such is Ash Lake, and to develop it, we must now move to some of the threads that lead into it. Let us look at some items that are often missed. There is a corpse that bears a chloranthy ring. The chloranthy ring is useful in many instances, but we are not especially concerned about its function at this point. We are concerned with its design. The description states that this ancient ring, engraved with a large green flower, is of unknown origin, a large green flower. That the ring is ancient is another interesting choice of words. Engraved with a large flower might also imply that the engraving is not required for its function. Whether it is or isn't, we could have an identifying mark. Let us look a little harder elsewhere in the game for this symbol. One rather obscure place that we find this symbol, or at least a variety of it, is in the design works. A picture of Gwyn in his armour has small ones that are identifiable. In the design works interview, the team talk about designing Gwyn's armour, talking about how they refined it and continued to adjust the design. They wanted the armour to look ancient, yet cool at the same time. They managed to turn him into the appearance of a lord who would be at the head of his troops. They reworked the design as it was the most important boss of the game. We can therefore take this as a certainty that these flower symbols were not sketched on carelessly. Let us look closer. It is not identical to the Chloranthe, but it is remarkably close. Note also that it's on armour that we find it. Allow us to continue our search for the symbol. We then find it in the most peculiar of places. A symbol that is on Gwyn's armour we find on Smoff's. You can see it quite clearly here. This is unmistakably the same as the symbol on Gwyn's. There are also what appears to be the same symbol on a different row, but this is in fact a cog. The cog is interesting, but remember, this is Miyazaki's favourite armour, and he wouldn't bestow that on it easily. He says that there's something unnatural about Smoff's armour. It doesn't look like something that would have been created by a normal, sane human. I think that's what I like about it. Now perhaps this can be interpreted as a non-normal mad human, or perhaps a non-normal mad non-human, i.e. negating everything. We will get to that in a moment. One assumes when he is talking about this, he is referring to Smoff, but of course, Smoff is an executioner, and perhaps a warrior, not a smith. As we know from other items, the armours of the gods were made by a specific smith. Smoff ground the bones of his victims for his own feed, and because of this, he ruined his hopes of being ranked with the 4 knights. There are several things we can assume from this. One is that he was at least of a level where the consideration was in question. A person unable to fight, or from a low rank, could have no opportunity for promotion. Similarly, he would already have had this armour, and indeed, perhaps this hammer is precisely what ground the bones of his victims. As one can see on the hammer, there are the elegant flower symbols, plain to see. Assuming his rank is close to Artorias, Kieran, Goff and Ornstein, it can then be assumed that a certain someone made his weapon, and the mark was perhaps an identifying mark of the nameless blacksmith deity. The nameless blacksmith deity, according to the Titanite slab, forged weapons for other gods. As Gwyn went to forge the flame after the nameless blacksmith deity passed, there is a possibility that Gwyn asked for a replacement to be made by someone else. However, this is unlikely, given we seem to see the same armour of Gwyn's in the intro as when we find him. However, we can still look closer. In addition to the fairly obvious symbols on both the armour and the weapon, we still have to consider just why this is Miyazaki's favourite armour set. Let us look at Smoff's Great Hammer. Aside from being a humongous strength-based weapon, it is also an unopened flower. Look carefully from above. What you have are an array of petals of the identical shape to the petals that form the symbols on his armour and around the hammer. If you imagine the hammer opening up, it would form a huge, destructive version of that pretty little symbol. A rather quaint weapon for an execution. This surely is the signature weapon of a master smith if ever there was one, but we are still not done yet. We will not bore you by telling you that the artworks reveal that Smoff's face and eyes are below where they apparently are. Instead, look at his armour as a whole. Around the waist is again the form of a large petal pattern. Once again, the flower that crops up everywhere is present on his very armour. Looking from above, similar to the hammer, we have the shape of a flower formed onto the plates of the stomach and legs. The flower is in its open form, integrated into the armour itself. This armour, ugly as it seems, is a collection of flowers. Now, whether the smith of Smoff's gear was mad or not is difficult to say. Why Smoff should be entitled to such an impressive set of armour is also difficult to say. But the fact remains that it's unlikely that Smoff was able of crafting this himself. Given the uniformity of the mark amongst several godlike sets, we can begin to infer the origins of some of these works of art, and work of art is an important distinction. First, let us try and discover where else this symbol can be found. This proves difficult. Let us try and find where the nameless blacksmith deity may have been. Then, we maybe have to work backwards. First of all, we can presume that he may have been in Anor Londo. He was a smith for the gods after all. Of course, we do find one living smith, the rather untalkative giant blacksmith. Although Goff calls him an old chap in the English version, in the Japanese he is referenced as a youngster. If he was around at the same time as the nameless blacksmith deity, he would have certainly been responsible for different things. One thing that is explicitly stated is that he was responsible for the lightning crossbow bolts. In perhaps one of the most bizarre item descriptions in the entire game, we are told, apparently needlessly, that the giant blacksmith has never seen a crossbow. The direct quote from the lightning bolt item description is, "Special bolt imbued with lightning, crafted by the giant blacksmith of Anor Londo. The giant blacksmith has never seen a crossbow, but remembers the specifications of the bolts requested by ancient warriors." Is this not an especially peculiar item description? It is done with such ease. Unlike Havel's ring, it does not hint or draw attention to itself. It could go entirely unnoticed. What this does necessitate is that the giant blacksmith has never made a crossbow. Let us now move on from the giant blacksmith, who for now does not help us much. In the opposite door to the one that the giant blacksmith works in, the mirror image in relation to the main entrance, is a fully locked room. It is our guess that this is the room from which the nameless blacksmith deity would have worked. Since his departure, it has been left unused. So given that there is perhaps a slight clue in a crossbow connection, we need to see if we can find a crossbow of some heritage. Perhaps not the first crossbow in the Undead Burg, though Dark Souls can sometimes hide great insights in unexpected locations. Nor is the sniper crossbow of much interest to us. Instead, it is of course the crossbow you are all thinking of, Avalyn. What more aristocratic crossbow could there be in the entire game than this beauty? This triple firing weapon must certainly be classified as a work of art, and one that would compete with the intricacies of Smoth's armour and weapon. Miyazaki says he knew the detail and complexity of the weapon could never come across in-game. For that reason they emphasised its inclusion in the design works, luckily for us when looking for evidence. Of course we find this weapon in the Duke's archives. This location is interesting already. Note that, in the design works interview, Miyazaki states that he had to put it in the Duke's archives. It was originally going to be Domhnall's weapon, but it was changed. The forcefulness of the wording "had to" is very interesting. So too is the fact that Miyazaki, having been asked about the origin of the name, says, I think there was a reason behind it, but I've forgotten. At least, that's what I'm going to tell you. So perhaps the name too can give us some insight. This certainly isn't a weapon only thrown in for the sake of including a triple crossbow. It has been thought of in relation to the lore. Our first intuition is to hungrily search for this identifying mark. While the bow is ornate, and the work of a master, we cannot find the symbol either on the crossbow in-game or in its images in the artwork book. Secondly, the description states that it was cherished by the master weapon craftsman Idas. Our hearts sink, as we assume this means that it was not made by the nameless blacksmith deity. However, we must be cautious. This game has incredibly careful use of English, and we should approach it with the same degree of accuracy. It states that the weapon was cherished by Idas, not that it was made by him. This is a vital distinction. A weapon craftsman or smith does not make weapons for himself, or at least rarely. Additionally, the word cherished makes it sound as though originally it may have been a gift. But wait, who and where is Idas? We believe that he is the Crystal Knight. Once again, moving from symbol to symbol, we can see that the crossbow Avalyn and the Crystal Knight's armour are exceedingly similar. In fact, to argue that they were not part of the same set would be lunacy. So what is Idas doing outside of Seath's room? Why is he wielding a crystal greatsword as opposed to the crossbow that so obviously would be used in conjunction with the rest of the set? Let us first establish the final connection with symbols. There is no identifying mark on Avalyn to connect it with the nameless blacksmith deity. However, there is an obvious crossover of patterns between Avalyn and the Crystal Knight's armor set, so perhaps we don't need to find the identifying mark upon Avalyn at all. We can instead look at the Crystal Knight's armor. At first glance, looking at the set in game yields no results. However, upon further very close inspection, there is in fact our flower symbol. On the thighs, on the chest piece, and, even more subtly, on the cuffs. Additionally, we must remember that it is a Crystal Knight we are dealing with. He has been partially crystallized. Aside from the mental effects, which we will get to in a moment, there are physical effects. Aside from the weight that would have to be being carried by Idas, the crystals also partially block the design of his armor. Once again, we move to the artwork book, and what we find smack bang in the middle of his shield, plainly visible now that the crystals have been removed, is a huge flower symbol, just like those we have been tracking. It is absolutely certain that Idas did not make Gwyn's armor. The timeline is just too deep, and considering the nameless blacksmith deity was still around when Gwyn was fighting the dragons, it would of course fall to the blacksmith in charge of the god's weapons and armors. Whether Idas made Avalyn, having learned the craft from his master, the nameless blacksmith deity, is up for debate. Perhaps he continued employing the symbol to show from who he learned his craft, but the lineage of the nameless blacksmith deity is clear. We are inclined to believe that the weapons of Idas were indeed made by the nameless blacksmith deity. This is because the Duke's archives are already littered with symbols. Remember, Seath was gifted the archives, he did not build them, they are not his originally. We have also previously argued that Gwyn may be related to giants, that Goth, while he is a giant, is related to Gwyn's progenitors, and that similarly, the nameless blacksmith deity, inhabiting the same sized room, although it is locked, as the giant blacksmith, and wielding slabs so large that from them great beasts arise, and the sheer size of Smoth's armour, all mean that he was a giant. Consider also that in Greek mythology Hephaestus was credited with building much of the palace of the gods, and that across a broad range of mythology, smith gods are also gods of stonework and craftsmanship. We therefore believe it's likely that the nameless blacksmith deity built the royal archives for the gods. There is further evidence for this. First, let's look at the mighty cogs in the archives. They are perhaps a lift to reach books, the foundations of a mighty planetarium, or the driver of the stairs in a corkscrew-like movement. Just as the other stairs move, so too may have these stairs corkscrewed up and down, but now sit inert. A makeshift ladder has been placed at the top to make up the difference of the stairs having stopped working in their lowered position, with poorly made planks to get across to some books previously accessible via the mechanism. The cell we find the white seance ring in is also inaccessible, and there is no evidence of destruction other than the cogs. Therefore, our favourite theory is that of a broken set of masterful moving stairs. Not only does the huge scale point to our smithing god, but also one wonders if the old cog symbol we have found previously is related to his previous masterpiece, that is, the archives. Secondly, we find on the lamps around the archives very similar patterning to the armour of the Crystal Knight. This patterning is also found at the top of the pillars, and as part of the banisters, but it is most similar to Idas's armour when found on the lamps. Considering the archives are well beyond the range of even a master craftsman, and squarely in the domain of a god, the symbols appearing first in the archives and then on Idas's armour makes us decide that Idas's set was built for him by his master, perhaps as a gift at the end of his training. Remember, Seath was gifted the royal archives. He is not royal, he is a duke, and he received them after betraying the dragons. Could the crystal caves have originally been mines for titanite? There is certainly an abundance of crystal lizards, which we must remember are related to the blacksmith deity and not to Seath. Whether the caves were mines or not is irrelevant in the final conclusion. What we seem to have is a smithing god, both for weapons and masonry and architecture. In short, a boss. This would correlate with many other gods in mythology who share such roles. So let us deal with Idas. What exactly is he doing outside of Seath's domain? Why is he wielding a crystal greatsword with Avalyn so far from him? First of all, it is interesting to note that Avalyn is in a location that only one very familiar with the layout, workings, and design of the archives would be able to retrieve and find safely. It is almost as if it was hastily put there for safekeeping. And what of the name that Miyazaki refused to give us the meaning behind? Avalyn is a name which does not have an obvious meaning. It is related, according to the scant sources we can find, to the name Avis and Aveline. The first has a meaning of bird or desired, and Aveline has a meaning that can be taken as hazelnut and also as wished for or longed for child. Also note that the far more common name Evelyn has a meaning in the German of little bird and in the English of beautiful bird. We must also remember that Dark Souls was voice recorded in the English. All these connotations certainly led the mind into ideas about Velka's child, if she had one, and perhaps to Priscilla. Certainly, if the child that may be being referenced in the weapon's name is Idas's, then it could fit the previous idea that the beautiful triple crossbow was a gift to mark the birth of a child, and as such the weapon is cherished. One thing related to Idas that we are certain of is that he has been captured. We believe Seath has crystallized him, perhaps to preserve his life, but at the very least to drive him into a form of insanity. The fact that his cherished weapon, whether he made it or not, is in a room far from where we find him, leads us to believe that his greatsword is also part of the mind control process. The weapon has been crystallized. As a master craftsman, the bond between him and the things he makes, and more specifically weapons of all kind, would be incredibly strong. If one weapon is also a representation of a daughter, or even a lost daughter, this connection is even deeper. How to replace this mental attachment? The description of Crystal Magic Weapon provides the answer. The Crystal Magic Weapon states that the crystal medium facilitated a stronger bond between weapon and soul. Therefore, perhaps the total crystallization of both Idas combined with the crystallization of the incongruent greatsword is in fact evidence of mind control tactics by Seath. It attempts to break his bond with his realities, with his past, with everything but the weapons he is forging. Practically addicted to his weapon, and to the crafting of crystal weapons, and perhaps the access of the tools Seath provides, he is kept in a mental state that is easy to control. Functional, yet practically hollow. He is such a shell of his former self, he even protects Seath, his jailer. Why would Seath do this? Firstly, it is likely that Idas was part of the rebellion. However, another very likely reason is that Seath is using him to craft weapons. As the giant blacksmith states, Shiny Shiny is with the Duke. This means that the Crystal Ember is in possession of the White Dragon. However, is it likely that Seath is hammering away? Hardly. Idas is the one creating the arms for the Crystal Hollow Warriors, and importantly, for the Channelers. Look carefully at the Crystal Armor set and the Channeler set. They certainly have some similar aspects. Of course, the Channeler set is a more aggressive, and perhaps slightly insane example of workmanship. But most important to take note of is the weapon. Just look at the quality of this weapon. The Channeler's Trident is yet again the work of a master smith, the only ones we know of being the nameless blacksmith deity and Idas. First of all, the black markings against the gold are similar to what we find on Avalyn, which hints at the nameless blacksmith deity and Idas's school of smithing. Second is the togs on both armours, one being more like an anemone on Idas, and the ones on the Channelers being a slightly smaller image, perhaps a dragon. The choices again, while different, do have far more similarity than most categories of armour. Thirdly, there is a triple aspect once again, with the Channeler's weapon being a triply pointed trident. Of course, the Channelers do have 3 pairs of eyes, but it does not follow that their weapons should follow this number. Rather, it may be Idas's obsession with his lost Avalyn that is causing this smithing choice. The effects of this weapon are also rather marvellous, with varied attacks and a buff. And if you look carefully, the points of the trident spin during the special attack. This is craftsmanship at an exceedingly high level. So we have Idas, trapped and mad, tasked with making the weapons for Seath's minions. If you still think that it's possible that these symbols are a careless filler to the armour designs, listen to this quote about the design of the Black Knight armour. As far as design goes, there are a number of themes I wanted to incorporate. I wanted to make them really detailed models, so we gathered a huge amount of reference material. Of course, cloth wouldn't fit their burned image, but I wanted to design right down to the patterns carved into their armour. I really wanted that quality. This is from software, remember. Very little is by accident. Before we move on, we will make a last point that the Grass Crest shield is also of unknown origin, as is the Chloranthy ring. Both give stamina increases, and the Grass Crest in its nature-focused design makes one think the Chloranthy is a natural partner. Its patterns also make us think, once again, of Idas's set. So, we have discovered quite a lot. Why don't we try and piece together some of what we have found in these new insights and see if we can learn something about the nameless blacksmith deity? The Black Knights are found consistently in locations very correlated with the plot against the gods. They are in positions to counter it, or have not moved from positions that they did counter it. The first Black Knight we find is facing a corpse with the blue tear stone ring, seemingly innocuous, but we would argue that this is the most compelling location correlated with the plot. The second is high upon a tower with an eye to what may be the exit for Andre, and near the shrine for the firstborn son. One is near the corpses of those who failed in the plot against the gods. Another is close to the vicinity of Pinwheel and Vamos, the non-spirit Black Knights that roam Lordran Dugwin's bidding. Let us try and piece together what that bidding is. What is near the Grass Crest shield is the corpse of Faris. Additionally, there is a bonfire that connects down to the Valley of the Drakes. Other interesting points is that we are near the Hydra and where Havel is locked up, or where Havel is believed to be locked up. The lore revealed from the first Black Knight is quite a find if one looks carefully. First of all, we must remember that those with too much greed were banished to the depths. This was a very recent event, as we have shown previously. Given the reference to greed combined so frequently with the plot against the gods, we are inclined to believe that the planning of the plot against the gods was also largely carried out secretively in the undead burg. Our reasons for this are several. First of all, what is a normal house in the undead burg doing with a treasure chest full of lightning buff? This buff is specifically powerful against dragons. Is this too soon to cry Havel? Okay, what about this? The corpse that has been slain has been dragged backwards to where it currently lies, having a rather special and exclusive ring for a typical undead corpse. Indeed, the way the body is dragged relative to the bloodstain looks more like an assassination than a direct attack. A sneak attack. The next support that this was the location for plotting against the gods is a well-known joke. How do you get Havel into a watchtower? You can't. It's Havel the Rock. He does what he wants. His weapon is the tooth of a dragon. It is quite possible his poise makes him literally immovable. How Havel gets into the watchtower is, he goes in himself. Look at the watchtower closely. There is the exit at the bottom, and the exit at the top. The exit at the top is the one which we enter into Havel's staircase. However, is that all the entrances that ever existed? Let us go back to the bloodstain, to the sneak attack, to the back door of what we believe to be a house of plotting rebels. Just ahead of the bloodstain, there is a corridor that simply ends. Ahead and to our right is a hollow throwing fire barrels. Haven't we all as Dark Souls novices avoided it and fallen straight down to our death? A long way to kill us, to kill anyone. Even Havel. Now a drop like that could lock someone in as effectively as any door. So how can we make the fall from the staircase and not die? As many of us discovered by accident the first time, it is by falling or jumping to a small stone lip that juts out just enough. A peculiar little extension. Now look to the other side. There is another entrance. An archway that likely leads to one of the wooden floors on our way down into Havel's watchtower. And so it becomes clear. This used to be a stone walkway that connected the watchtower and the burg more directly. It is a stone walkway that Havel walked over, and which was smashed from above just after he had entered the watchtower. As the watchtower basement key states, the basement of the watchtower forms a stone cell. This means it acts as one, and its structure, or altered structure, manages to have the same form as a prison, though it was not built as one. Other members of the Dark Souls world who are locked up, Lautrec, Maidens, Logan, Twice, are in legitimate cells. Why put Havel in this huge place? Why use a watchtower? Again, because you can't put Havel in a cell. A man who wields dragon teeth cannot be made to do anything. He must be tricked. An unfortunate co-conspirator, whose identity we will get to in a moment, was slain too. Havel, most likely betrayed by one of his own, is trapped, and the plotting against the gods comes to nothing. For now. Finally, the Watchtower basement key takes on a deeper meaning. It is not referencing Gwyn, nor is it referencing Seath. Rather, it is referencing the betrayal of a friend, one of the rebels and co-conspirators. There are rumours of a hero turned hollow, who was locked away by a dear friend, for his own good, of course. Perhaps the friend justified the action as saving Havel's life, as the plot would have gotten them all killed anyway. The real question is, who betrayed them? With this interesting location of the Black Knight shown to deeply correlate with the rebels' actions, and the location of the other Black Knight in the Tomb of the Giants, the other locations begin to fit the same pattern too. Perhaps Andre is being trapped and watched over, as the Black Knight also keeps an eye on the Shrine of the Firstborn Sun for any stray followers. The Black Knight in the Tomb of Giants is obviously a vestige of the squashing of the plot against the gods, carrying out a similar task as the Black Knight or Knights who tracked Havel. And the Black Knight near the Grass Crest Shield may hint at a later time than the Black Knights who trapped him. Havel had many friends, many of whom were powerful. We believe the location of the Grass Crest Shield and the secretive bonfire hint at a plot to free Havel. It did not go smoothly, but we believe it may have been successful. First, let us take the fact that Havel's ring is described as being worn by Havel warriors. Second, that they have great faith in their leader. Faith is in the definition, complete trust or confidence in someone. Faith often means you will do a great deal for the object of your faith, and often to a degree that is beyond reason. Thirdly, the enemy we find at the base of the watchtower is rather easy to kill. Fourthly, Havel's weapons are found late in game in a chest in Anor Londo. Fifth, and perhaps the most important, is the most enigmatic of Havel item description changes in the Japanese. Once again, it is in the infamous Watchtower basement key item description, but this time the emphasis is not on the friend. What it is on, however, is something even more attention-grabbing. The Japanese translates as, "The basement of the Watchtower has become a stone prison. A hero who became hollow was confined there by the hands of a friend. It is said he has been shut in there ever since." In the English translation, rumours are referenced. This is helpful to put the locking up of Havel fairly recently on the timeline of Dark Souls, well after Gwyn has passed, as we have proven. However, the Japanese hints at rumours rather more subtly. "It is said" has rumour-like connotations. It implies information and potential misinformation, gossip, and most importantly, doubt. What does it express doubt about? That he has been locked in there ever since. Now, if someone is safely locked up, in prison, would there be rumours about if he's still in there? Surely not. It is entirely obvious if an inmate is still in his cell. However, if an inmate was clad in armour when he was locked up, and to see his face would mean beating him in battle, which may be a rather difficult thing to do, this might mean his identity would be harder to confirm. Indeed, rumour often spread in the lower echelons of society. It is unlikely that those in power would hear of such rumours. We believe that this description implies that there has been a plot to free Havel. A great escape. Rumours of the potential freeing of Havel have spread. Has he escaped? Is he still in there? Most think surely not. And so the phrase, "It is said he has been locked in there ever since," comes along. The combination of all these factors, which cast doubt on the identity of the man in the watchtower, leads us to believe that while Havel may have originally been locked in, now there is a faithful follower of Havel taking his place. Rather like the plot of the man in the Iron Mask, a different man has been locked up inside. Except this time, it is benevolent. It could even not be a follower of Havel's, but an enemy of Havel placed there as vengeance. Arbet is on a warrior of Havel's, doing his duty, staunchly showing his faith to his master throughout the endless years, never flinching, never retreating. It is stated that undead are afraid of fire, yet the man in the watchtower returns to his place, looks up, and stares at the torch. Hardly the behaviour of a typical undead. He looks instead like a man who strives to do his duty. So, other than rumour, where is the evidence of this escape plot? First is the collateral damage that may have been left behind. There is what is likely the corpse of Faris, his great bow left in a prime position to give covering fire during escape. A secretive bonfire mined in a tunnel gives access to replenishing Estus, and further down the tunnel, a lift to the Valley of the Drakes, which in turn gives access to New Londo and all the rogues that reside there. It also gives access to Blighttown and its entrance to Ash Lake. Similarly, there is a corpse which possesses the Grass Crest shield, which we have already shown is likely to be linked to the rebels. The Black Knight once again is involved. And the armour of Faris, who it should be pointed out is found in a dark chasm of old in Dark Souls 2, alongside many other rebellious figures such as Havel, is worn by one of the followers of Alvina's Covenant. Dusk is also captured by a crystal golem, and we have reason to believe that she may have been involved with the plot against the gods as well. At least, there is evidence of Ulaseel's involvement. And finally, the evidence that a plot was carried off, the corpses of which litter the entrance to Nito's domain, would imply a time difference between the events of the Battle of the Rebels in Darkroot and the Battle of the Rebels in Nito's domain. There cannot be a raging battle in Darkroot at the same time when the same members are rebelling against the gods. Therefore, the battles must have been at different times, and we believe the rebels would rescue Havel, who was perhaps their leader, before launching the full assault against the gods. Andre also states that there is a divine blacksmith in Darkroot. However, this blacksmith is dead. This would imply that Andre either has not been into Darkroot in some time, or that both the plots and the escape of Havel are fairly recent events. Perhaps this divine blacksmith was also involved, incurring Seath's wrath here as well. After all, some divine blacksmith gone to the dark side had to work with occult weapons to provide them for the rebels, and no living blacksmith knows of the occult ember. Of course, there is the dead blacksmith in the Painted World as well. And who betrayed them in the first place? We believe, though it is a speculative guess, that Ricard may have been responsible for the betrayal against the rebels, ratting out the planned plot against the gods. There are a few reasons for this idea. First of all, he is undead, and this undeath may have led him to the likes of Havel and the fellow Dragon Covenant members. It is interesting to note that Velka is specifically described as heretical in the Japanese. Ricard is guarding a rare ring of sacrifice from Velka, in addition to a divine blessing. Therefore, we wonder if Ricard was a double agent, playing both sides of the field. Why else would the daughter of Gwyn, or perhaps the illusion of Guinevere, which is far more likely given the timeline, reward him? He may have betrayed his friends for a goddess that left long ago and merely ratted them out to a sad Gwyndolin. Perhaps Ricard is now hiding out, as the crestfallen merchant does not include him in the list of those who have failed in Sens. Perhaps it is neither safe for him above or below, where the betrayed and surviving conspirators wish their revenge upon him. So now the rebels have Havel, who may be the leader. At some point, the conspirators make their way down into Ash Lake. To access Ash Lake, one first has to traverse two hidden walls. If we remember Dusk's dialogue, we are told quite clearly that the magic of Ulaseel relates to changing the environment. It is not so obsessed with oneself, or the caster of the spell. Hidden walls then would be a typical example. Rather interestingly, just as we find various hidden walls in Ulaseel, a hidden wall is used in a fireplace in Anor Londo to hide Havel's gear, and two hidden walls have been made to hide Ash Lake. Once again, the patterns keep cropping up. Hidden walls seem to be largely the domain of not only Ulaseel, but of plotters against the gods. Knowing what we know now, let us re-enter Ash Lake and keep our wits about us. There is the ring, the Chloranthy ring, but well before that there are other things that should catch our attention. One, which many people take advantage of in New Game Plus and so on, are the respawning crystal lizards. One must remember that these crystal lizards have been peeled from their slab and received a special power. Did they receive it from the nameless blacksmith deity? What is certain is that the highest concentration of crystal lizards is in the Great Hollow. In addition, at the base of Ash Lake are clam enemies, who also have the potential to drop twinkling titanite. We must remember for the rest of the video that shellfish are generally bottom feeders, the equivalent of water scavengers. These clams did not produce the twinkling titanite they have consumed, and perhaps rather like a pearl being formed around a grain of sand that could not be cleared out, this piece of titanite was an irritating meal that could not be flushed out. This concept of a foreign body being eaten by clams will be relevant later. Also in the Great Hollow are mushrooms, giant mushrooms just like Elizabeth. We've already mentioned the likely collusion of some members of Ulasil in the plot against the gods, and perhaps these mushrooms are not the dumb creatures we take them for. Finally, there are the cursing lizards, the same ones we find in the depths. Were both sets sent down to punish those plotting against the gods, or is their original habitat the Great Hollow? It is difficult to tell. Once again, however, there is evidence that someone has been here other than the worshippers of dragons. Seath has clams in his crystal caves, which are separated from Ash Lake by a huge geographical distance, and are very different environments for the clams to live in, with the lake being far more likely since they are obviously water-based. In addition, the Hydra and the clams appear to live symbiotically in Ash Lake, with the clams burrowing into the sand to avoid the Hydra's water breath when it aggroes on intruders. Finally, we have a Hydra, a bonfire, a skull, and a dragon. The bonfires are made of a sword plunged in fire. The Great Hollow is littered with twinkling titanite that has to be peeled from a titanite slab. Slabs are heirlooms passed down from the blacksmith deity since his death. The Dragon Covenant, which was joined by the Firstborn Son, likely came down to Ash Lake, the same Firstborn Son who has demon titanite by his bedside. Close by the Firstborn Son's bedroom is one of the strongest titanite demons in the game. The Firstborn Son had respect only for arms. Perhaps he also had a great respect for the king among weapon craftsmen, the nameless blacksmith deity. There is one thing that certainly links them. They are the only two deities who are nameless. The nameless Firstborn Son fraternized with the Dragon Covenant. Perhaps the nameless blacksmith deity also fraternized with the Dragonland. Are all these close ties merely coincidence? The threads that link the nameless blacksmith deity to the Firstborn Son, the links with the nameless blacksmith deity to the Great Hollow, and all the little pointers, lead us to believe that the skull in Ash Lake is the head of the nameless blacksmith deity. The rune on a titanite chunk translates as yew tree, which in Norse mythology are the trees which hold up the earth and the heavens. If therefore titanite comes from arch trees, perhaps the nameless blacksmith deity would have to harvest slabs himself. Also, after he passes, what happens? From several slabs great beasts arise. Intimately connected with the blacksmith, the slabs being his heirlooms, perhaps the demons are in some manner related to him as well. Remember the choice of word, demon. One of the fears of fighting titanite demons is the range of their weapons, that they can use ranged attacks. But what form of ranged attacks? They can fire lightning. The only individuals capable of lightning are Gwyn, or those intimately connected with him. This would again support the idea that the nameless blacksmith deity is related to Gwyn. Next, the shape of the weapon is remarkably similar to the tongs a blacksmith would have to use to take metal or weapons out of the forge. Next is the fact that the demons are crippled. One leg is dragged lamely across the floor as we fight them. This makes us think of the Greek god of smithing, Hephaestus. Hephaestus was also a cripple, a muscular blacksmith depicted with a crippled leg, hunched over with his tongs. Hephaestus was thrown out of Olympus at birth as he was shriveled of foot. He was often depicted with his feet backwards, or with damaged legs. If the nameless blacksmith deity is in some way represented by the titanite demons, then he may have also been lame of leg. Also, the nameless blacksmith deity made and fixed the weapons of the gods. And what does demon titanite do? It is used to reinforce the weapons of the gods. The connections between the demons as having a design which likely correlates in some aspects to the nameless blacksmith deity is building. And finally, what is the other disfigurement which ails the titanite demons? There is a head without a body at the bottom of Ash Lake, and the demons that arise from the slabs are all described as faceless. A clean slice to the neck displays runes but no head. The Titanite demon is faceless, and the skull in Ash Lake is bodiless. All of the living giants that we see have their faces covered. Perhaps at the bottom of Ash Lake is the uncovered skull of the giant nameless blacksmith deity. Also, listen to the description of the Crystal Ember. Crystal Ember created by Seath the Scaleless, handled only by the giant gods blacksmiths. The interpretation of grammar here becomes very important. We cannot take it too literally because it could be a typo, but let's break it down. The giant gods blacksmiths. First of all, blacksmiths is plural, meaning unambiguously more than one. So, we must then move to the apostrophe. Gods. The apostrophe here means possession, i.e. the blacksmiths are possessed by the god, and it is god, singular. The grammar required if the blacksmiths were owned by plural gods would be gods blacksmiths, with the apostrophe after the s. Therefore, the only ambiguity left is to what noun giant applies. Does giant apply to the noun god, as in a giant god who has blacksmiths? Or does giant apply to blacksmiths, as in the giant blacksmiths of a single god? Common sense would argue that the placing would apply to god, as otherwise you would say the god's giant blacksmiths. Therefore, we would argue that if this is not a grammar mistake, the god of all the blacksmiths, likely referring to all blacksmiths who work in Lordran, is a giant. Even if the meaning is taken that all of the god's blacksmiths are giants, would it not be terribly likely that this god was a giant too? Next is the Chloranthy ring, bearing his enigmatic symbol and of ancient origin. Additionally, the Prism Stone item, arguably most useful in the Great Hollow, if exchanged with Snuggly gives us none other than a demon Titanite. We will flesh out more of Snuggly later, and how her item trades are certainly not coincidence. The deity's namelessness does imply a similar fate to the firstborn son, but we cannot be sure. Either way, what we do believe is that his death precedes the presence of the stone dragon found in Ash Lake. If we once again take Hephaestus as the analogy, we learn that Hephaestus was married to Aphrodite, the troublesome goddess of love. It is well known that she was not especially attracted to her husband, and that she cheated on him habitually with other gods, most of whom had wives themselves. Could it be that the nameless blacksmith deity had the misfortune of being married to the troublesome Fina? Could also have Fina's alliance with Xanthus King Jeremiah hurt the nameless blacksmith deity as much as it did the Witch of Izalith? Perhaps the two wronged lovers found care in each other's arms, the Witch of Izalith and the nameless blacksmith deity finding each other out of hardship. Let us look at the locations of our Titanite demons. There are a great abundance of them at the base of Sen's fortress. Sen, interestingly, is a surname found in the east of the Indian subcontinent, derived from the Sanskrit word for army. This supports our idea that Sen's fortress, long before its usage very recently as an undead challenge, was a soldier's training ground. In Japanese it also means 1000, and interestingly, in Vietnam it means lotus flower. But the Titanite demons themselves are a challenge to explain. With the dozens and dozens of armours littered about the fortress, it is not unfeasible a great deal of smithing occurred here as well. Weapons and armour would break during the extensive practice that soldiers had to go through. Therefore, the slabs left behind from this smithing would have given rise to a number of demons. This is one idea. Another Titanite demon is before the entrance to Darkroot Garden. This is presumably evidence that perhaps Andre had a slab before we ever give him one. There is one outside of Nito's domain, which is once again an extremely peculiar position. Given that it's close to the Tomb of Giants, perhaps one of the nameless blacksmith deity's kin held onto a slab. And again, the location being close to a blacksmith, in this case Vamos, is again a pattern upheld with the previous location of the demon next to Andre. Now we get into the far more interesting locations. One is deep within Anor Londo, incredibly near the firstborn son's room. This is an incredibly strong Titanite demon. It is as though the residual elements of the nameless blacksmith deity's soul retain some resonance with places he was connected to. And the next is the only Titanite demon in the game that respawns, which squats almost in the centre of Izalith, just at the end of the route taken by the Covenant of Chaos. It sits as if it's guarding Izalith from someone who may have been close to her, perhaps the suspicious Quelana, or even the returning Jeremiah. It would seem that the true soul of the nameless blacksmith deity, and at least his most prized heirloom, resides within Izalith. How interesting also, as we mentioned before, that once he passes, demons arise. Not ghosts or embodiments, but demons. How fitting, if indeed there was a love affair, kindled by the violent mutual betrayal of their partners, that this connection is shown in-game by this violent Titanite demon. Furthermore, the youngest of Izalith's children, the Ceaseless Discharge, could begin to make more sense. If the smaller daughters are the offspring of Jeremiah, and then once the nameless blacksmith deity and Izalith are betrayed, the two of them have Ceaseless, the size of Ceaseless is more explainable, and the skull in Ash Lake more comparable to him than most others. In addition, beyond the Titanite demons and the slabs found in Izalith, the Stray Demon, likely a rather powerful demon, perhaps trapped to do a certain service for Izalith, as the placement is more a mystery than most realise, carries a slab. An heirloom of the nameless blacksmith deity carried by a demon. The connections of the nameless blacksmith deity to Izalith seem stronger and stronger, and yet it goes further. The firstborn's son holds a piece of demon titanite in a chest by his bed, and has pictures of Izalith in his room. There are sunlight medals, the symbol of the firstborn son dropped by chaos bugs down below. And there are also 2 divine blessings. These divine blessings, added to the fact that Guinevere ran away with the flame god Flan, who must surely be closer in relation to Izalith than those who occupy Lordran, pushes connections yet further to the land of Izalith. More and more, it seems as if the children of Gwyn have sided with Izalith, and perhaps so too did the nameless blacksmith deity. Given the red titanite chunk can reinforce chaos weapons, this certainly means that he passed after the Chaos Flame was created. Indeed, his connection with the realm of Izalith may be older than even that. The flower image can be found deep within Izalith, so perhaps this master architect and stonemason worked to build up Izalith as well as Lordran. Crystal lizards hold twinkling titanite, which has to be peeled from a slab. Aside from that, many of the crystal lizards in the Hollow also carry some likelihood of dropping a titanite slab. Slabs being owned by the nameless blacksmith deity, and after his death became heirlooms. Rather bizarre to pass to lizard creatures if he didn't pass in the vicinity. If he were to have died here, then this form of abundance would be expected, however. Additionally, we have argued before that the items traded by Snuggly are anything but random. The Great Hollow is one of the few places that prism stones are of true value. And what do we get from Snuggly when we trade in a prism stone? Demon Titanite, the form of titanite that arose on the death of the nameless blacksmith deity. But why did he die? Perhaps it was his time, mere old age. Perhaps, being a giant, he was a relation of Smough, further explaining the remarkable armour Smough wears. Smough is said in the Japanese to have ground the flesh and bones of his victims, this being an idiom for relatives. Perhaps this is a vague allusion to the death of the deity, and to the absence of his bones in Ash Lake. Now for a bit of a breather from this marathon video. For this, we will look at some interesting lore speculation and potential depth, and also then provide you with a mystery we cannot begin to figure out. Snuggly, that cute little crow. As random as one might think, we think not. While there is plenty of speculation here, it does seem to be non-random to an extent. Let us look at some of Snuggly's items in the light of the lore insights that we have achieved. The first is Bloodred Moss Clump, Purple Moss Clump, and Blooming Purple Moss Clump. These are traded with Snuggly for Twinkling Titanite, and 2 Twinkling Titanites respectively. Now, this could be entirely random, but considering Dung Pai also gives Demon Titanite, implying the blacksmith deity's death, it could be implying that the poisonous traversal to Ash Lake may have killed him, or that his cause of death was poisoning. Next is the cracked red eye orb for a purging stone. This, along with the bite ring in New Londo, leads us to believe that Arstor the Earl of Kareem was a dark wraith. The egg vermifuge gives a dragon scale. Once again, the connections between the base of Blighttown and Ash Lake and its dragons is very interesting. The pendant is a souvenir of reprisal. Rhea holds a pendant, and we will get to that in a moment. And what do we get for the prism stone? As we have already mentioned, Demon Titanite, the symbol of the dead blacksmith deity. Pyromancy Flame yields from Snuggly a red titanite chunk. A fairly obvious connection, but interestingly dates the demise, as we already knew, of the giant blacksmith deity as coming before the fighting of Izalith with Gwyn, as the blacksmith of the gods would not be working with their sworn enemies. The ascended pyromancy flame shows the same, as well as yielding a slab, an heirloom, which is interesting. Rubbish yields a titanite chunk, which is rather peculiar. Ring of the Sun Princess, a double divine blessing. A fairly obvious connection. What is interesting is this very much seems as though it is a reward from the goddess Guinevere herself. It is not a reward of Velka's. One can speculate if therefore Guinevere is on good terms with Velka, who will return her ring later. Perhaps the twin rewards of Ricard do not imply double dealing, but that Guinevere, the true Guinevere, and Velka have aligned interests. The sack is the mystery, which we'll get to in a moment. The Skull Lantern and the Ring of Fog is a peculiar one which we can't explain. The Soul of Manos and the Pursuer's item is obvious. The Sunlight Maggot and the Old Witch's Ring is remarkably interesting, and a clear connection. The Sunlight Medal receiving a white titanite chunk also makes sense. Twin Humanities are the raw ingredients for a rare Ring of Sacrifice, a double sacrifice required for such an effect. The Xanthus Crown and the Ring of Favour and Protection likely shows a connection, as we have previously argued, between Xanthus King Jeremiah and Fina, the troublesome goddess. All this is quite compelling support for a pre-planned and lore-connected arrangement of Snuggly's items. And now for the one we missed. First we have to pose the mystery. There is one corpse amongst all the rest in Dark Souls which grabs our attention. Of all the undead bodies, this one is the most peculiar to us. It is one of many corpses in its area, one of many, and yet it is unique. Perhaps the needle in a haystack of bodies. We find it when we are disoriented and confused. Thrown into this new world, we are unlikely to have a great deal of lore in our heads. Upon arriving in the Undead Asylum, we first want to learn the mechanics and escape, but almost in the first 30 seconds of gameplay, there is something odd. Most notice, with fear, the hulking demon off to our right, but what on earth is it doing there? Locked up, sitting on a mountain of corpses that perhaps, if they are undead, have died many times. It may be the perfect punishment for an undead, to die at this demon's hands over and over. Of course, it is likely in the interests of the demons, as the demons' locations are largely related to the intentions of the surviving culture of Izalith. However, it is the dying prisoners that interest us. They are all uniform and horrific in appearance. Indeed, they do not differ from any other hollows we find in-game. Except one. One, in a daring and almost successful escape, has been killed just on the cusp of potential freedom. Bars bend outwards from the impact of the crushing killing blow the demon delivered, and this one body lies strewn over these bars. However, there is one peculiarity. Over the face of this seemingly irrelevant hollow, of this corpse that seems to be merely placed to set the tone of the asylum, is a sack. A sack, hiding the face of a nameless hollow. Sacks in-game have an interesting role. Indeed, it would seem that sacks are only worn by women. The wearers of other sacks in-game are Man-Eater Mildred and the Butchers. In the former case it may be shame, and in the latter case it is also used by the developers to hide the enemy's gender. But in general, it is to do with the concealing of some aspect of identity. It is therefore interesting that this corpse holds a sack, as though someone wished to hide the identity of the hollow, or that the hollow wanted to hide their own identity. Who could this be? Could it be one of the plotters against the gods? Could it be some enemy of the demons? Could it be Velka herself, with her minion waiting outside to collect her after her escape? Who is to know? But the identity of this hollow is very compelling. What is the most curious aspect of this sack, if indeed it was an accidental garment or design and nothing more, is the choice of Snuggly of what to return upon the gift of the sack. The curious item that Snuggly gives you on receipt of the sack is the Demon's Great Hammer. The Demon's Great Hammer. Such a worthless item as the sack yields such a great reward, and it is a pair of demons that seem to guard this unique hollow. If anyone is capable of explaining it, then they get the reward of another of the numerous mysteries still in Dark Souls. Now let us get onto another pillar of this mystery, The enigma at the centre of so much lore, Seath. It is a requirement with Seath to be as thorough as possible. This means going with the earliest information we have. Therefore, we must look at the introduction again. We are told that Seath the Scaleless betrayed his own, yet it has been much debated what emotion grips Seath in the introduction. He sits atop a pile of his kin's corpses. Considering he betrayed them, one cannot help but feel that the emotion is a negative one. Perhaps it's a strong grief, or perhaps it's a strong frustration. One does not intuitively feel that it's a victory cry. We do not feel as though he is celebrating overcoming them. Also, an interesting aspect of this moment is that he is crushing something in his hand. The overwhelming obsession of Seath is immortality. He pillages the primordial crystal from the dragons, devotes great time and study into further understanding of crystals, and, as we will endeavour to show, strives to develop and understand true immortality, the form which was possessed by the dragons. It is said throughout Dark Souls that Seath developed a form of madness, largely focusing around his obsession with capturing maidens. However, occasionally, what can seem like madness on the outside can have a lot of reason. Sometimes an individual knows what he is doing. Certainly, Seath's plots and machinations would be private, and as such, the general rumours of Anor Londo or Lordran would not be privy to his true intentions. Consider the description of the Cage Key. This perfectly demonstrates how the activities of Seath themselves, let alone the intentions behind them, are very opaque. The description states, if a hapless adventurer becomes fatigued during an imprudent attempt to overcome the fortress, the Serpent Men will not kill him, but lock him up in a lonely cage. Eventually, unless they have forgotten, they drag the victim off to who knows where. As we find out later, the Serpent Men are lackeys of Seath. Therefore, the victim will be dragged off to Seath's archives. Logan himself takes advantage of the situation. Is it really likely that Logan was fatigued at so early a point in the fortress? Or is it likely he aims to reach Seath's and his stores of knowledge without all the risk that is entailed by facing the Iron Golem, and the other risks along the way? Later, we find him locked in Seath's domain again. Perhaps he has used a similar tactic. Therefore, we can assume that the general public, and a great deal of item descriptions, are not aware of what Seath is up to. We shall take this tone going forward. Let us start with our position on Seath and then begin to flesh it out. We believe that Seath betrayed the dragons for one overwhelming reason: immortality. Intending on some technique, he expected to be able to utilise the scales of the dragons for himself and achieve immortality. What his planned methods were are difficult to say. What he intended to do once achieving his objective is also difficult to say. Once he acquired the immortality, would he slaughter the gods and the humans and thus become ruler of the world? Or was it merely survival? If considered carefully, one is forced to accept that Seath had a time limit. No other dragons are going to die. Seath is inevitably going to die. He is forced to take drastic action as his time is running out. He cannot attain immortality from the destruction of Gwyn, or indeed the destruction of any party, other than the dragons. So Seath takes a risk. We believe his intention involves robbing the scales of the dragons after the war, and the emotion we see in the introduction sequence is one of intense disappointment, of rage, of frustration, of an undoable action. Once peeled, the scales seem worthless. He crumbles some to dust. He has not only betrayed his brethren, but the payoff evaporated. Fortunately, there was a silver lining. He pillaged the primordial crystal from the dragons. Using this, he manages to survive until we defeat him. However, as we discover, despite his placing of the crystal in the deepest part of the crystal caves, guarded by all manner of beasts and invisible bridges, moonlight butterflies and crystal golems, we are able to destroy it in a moment. However well one guards it, it is an inherently fragile thing. However, if he could only achieve the scales of immortality, combined with the removal of Gwyn, with the firstborn son being outcast, perhaps having failed to receive his inheritance of the Sunlight Spear, and indeed the absence of all the powerful gods, all this combined would make him a fairly indisputable king of Lordran, and likely far beyond. Therefore, we believe that most of Seath's actions revolve around immortality. However, these of course occur in several forms. He is interested in crystals and their properties. Perhaps in similar fashion, as special titanite resolves into crystal lizards, it could be that crystals help with bonding and absorption. After all, it is stated that crystals are very linked to the nature of souls. However, there is one route which we believe he pursues doggedly since the time of his betrayal. This is the pursuit of the scales of immortality. While in the introduction we believe we see his great disappointment at the impotence of the harvested scales, we must remember that many dragons still survive. As time goes on, however, the numbers dwindle. What is certain is that due to Seath's lack of scales, he does at least require a dragon or dragons possessing them for either experimentation, grafting, or any other type of scale-based research. Now let us look into Seath's activities with a bit more care. Contrary to the general consensus, we believe that Seath's activities are incredibly rational. As Seath doesn't actively engage, but rather has minions to carry out his dirty work, it is to them that we have to look. First and foremost amongst them are the Channelers. Having 6 eyes that apparently compensate for Seath's lack of sight, they traverse Lordran carrying out Seath's demands, and these demands are ongoing. Just consider the disappearance of Rhea in late game, who is ferried directly to the archives. Therefore, we must assume that their duties haven't ceased, and therefore their placements in the rest of the game are not random. With this in mind, the placement of a Channeler deep in the depths, a place of rebels and outcasts, full of poison and danger, has to be questioned. Near a number of rats is a Channeler seemingly on its own and without purpose. Only when we fight the Gaping Dragon is its apparent purpose revealed. The Channeler proceeds not only to attack us, but to buff the dragon. The fight is made immensely easier by killing the Channeler before attacking the dragon. Why would a Channeler, a minion of Seath, be concerned with an aged, vomiting dragon? The Dragon King Greataxe states that the Gaping Dragon is a distant, deformed descendant of the ancient dragons. However, in the Designworks interview and in the Japanese, it hints instead that he was an ancient dragon, and that it was the emergence of hunger, coming along with all the other disparities, that caused his shape to morph like this. At first we questioned if it was indeed a he, due to the vaginal imagery and the vague impression from its distended backbelly of pregnancy. While it does appear that both in the Designworks interviews and item descriptions the Gaping Dragon is described as he, this wrong idea still helped us hit upon future insights. Whether he is a distant descendant, or merely morphed to be distant to what he once was, if one was intent on the discovery of the scales of immortality, a creature which may be the genetically closest living being to the ancient dragons other than Seath would certainly be worth keeping alive. Therefore, the Channelers keep watch and attempt to preserve this creature. Bear in mind that the Gaping Dragon is actually in rather a safe place. To get up from Blighttown is difficult and indeed impossible without the key, and to get down through the depths is similarly a challenge. An interesting puzzle is where the Gaping Dragon comes up from. As we can go to Blighttown before the depths, it is obvious that he is not, visibly at least, in Blighttown. One wonders if he may be coming up from the deeper depths, the depths of the world, where water runs to, of what Ash Lake is just a tiny part of. So we have some of what Seath intends, the preservation of all dragons who possess a degree of similarity with the ancient dragons. At this point it's important to note that one of these includes Seath himself. Seath is an ancient dragon, he is just albino. According to the bequeathed Lord Soulshard, he is an albino dragon. Apparently in dragons this manifests in a skin issue that is a lack of scales. One aspect of albino effects is a lack of sight. However, this is rarely full blindness, just some degree of vision impairment. We believe it is more likely that Seath is partially sighted, although likely to a high degree of impairment. Therefore, as the Channelers help Seath's lack of sight, it could be said that this lack of sight is from the albino trait of Seath. It may not be that Seath is entirely blind, only partially sighted. Also, and this is important, an albino parent does not necessarily produce albino offspring. We move closer to the solution now. Another close to dragon creature is Priscilla, who is supposedly half dragon. She looks to have some scales, perhaps on her forehead, but she was locked up by the Lords and was also in our opinion feared by Seath. And finally we have the stone dragon in Ash Lake, which, at least to the eye, is the closest to the ancient dragons. Ignoring some aspects such as size and the item description of the dragon greatsword, which states that the stone dragon is a descendant of the ancient dragons, one would be tempted to say that it is an ancient dragon, but this makes it clear that it is no such survivor. Note that it does not say distant descendant. We must remember that distance in descendants is not related to time, but to lineage. This means, purely as an example, if you are the son of Adam and Eve who happens to live for over 1,000 years, you are not a distant descendant of Adam and Eve in the later stages of your life. However, if the separation is many generations, perhaps spanning under 500 years, you may then be called a distant descendant. Distance in descendancy relates to intervening generations, not time. Superficially, the Channeler's protection of the Gaping Dragon leads us to realise Seath's concern with the dragons, and again, on the surface level, it appears that the evidence of the Hydra in the lake, and near the location of many crystal golems, including Dusk, a captured maiden, implies that Seath may be involved with the Stone Dragon too. And we again find Ash Lake creatures, most specifically the clams, deep in the crystal caves. However, it is Seath himself who strikes us as the most compelling dragon to look at first. What is Seath up to exactly, other than his quite understandable research into crystals? The most notorious of his activities, and that for which he was called mad, was the kidnapping of maidens. Even to the present moment he seems to be carrying it out, though not to any great extent. We only see it in action with Rhea, who may in fact be a person of interest to Seath. There still reside some Pisaka, some of whom were presumably Guinevere's maidens, at the foot of the archives. The Giant Tower cell key states, "The giant cell once imprisoned countless maidens, but is now empty, save for a few key persons. They struggle to uphold their sanity, as the horde of mistakes writhe at a fearfully close proximity." So there is shown how countless maidens used to reside there. What is also interesting is that the number has dwindled and that mistakes writhe there. This could imply something. Mistakes are writhing there, but perhaps there were not only mistakes. Perhaps there were some successes. The number would therefore naturally dwindle if there were no need for more maidens. Another vital aspect of the nature of the maidens, if they are merely worthless failed experiments, is the behaviour of the lizard men on the moment of your entrance. They do not attack you in the slightest, but merely run up the stairs and to the top of the ladder. Note that the ladder is something the Pisaka cannot get up. Now, the Pisaka are not especially challenging enemies, unlikely to cause death. But what is very likely, at least in our experience, is that a first-time encounter will cause you to get grabbed and spiked. So it seems as though the lizard men are intending to preserve the Pisaka, but at the same time are not especially concerned with you. Let us also look at Priscilla. She resides in a painting not a few minutes gameplay away from Seath. If she is supposed to be the end result of his experiments, then why would he not experiment on her, or use her for whatever ends he intended? As the gods have locked her up indefinitely, one could presume the gods don't much care for her quality of life, and would be happy for Seath to do what he wishes. Instead, Seath seems entirely unconcerned with the capture of Priscilla. The Painting Guardians are hardly a force to be reckoned with for someone like Seath. The Channelers are remarkably strong, and he also has many crystal soldiers who pack a punch. For living so close to a largely empty Anolondo, he seems to do very little to breach the painting's defences. We believe this is because Seath is concerned with the full dragon, not a half-dragon. Indeed, he may be far more aware of Priscilla's existence than we might expect. Let us look closely at this for a moment, and perhaps some things will come together. Seath is obsessed with immortality, and is likely working on the attainment of the scales of immortality. Due to his albino nature, he is scaleless. The albino condition is extremely unlikely to pass down to an offspring if only one parent is albino. The Gaping Dragon is also male. Maidens, presumably often of the church, were captured in great number, as Seath became obsessed with maidens during his madness. There are still some there at present. The lizards seem to be trained to not harm the Pisaka, as though they are some objects of value, or of potential value. Priscilla resides nearby, apparently not interesting Seath in the slightest. A maiden is defined as an unmarried girl or young woman, or a virgin. A small, nested, feathery dragon is at the bottom of Ash Lake, with ample evidence that Seath or his minions have been down there. We find ourselves reaching the inevitable conclusion that Seath is concerned with the creation of a full dragon, not a half-dragon at all. Through some means he attempted to take human women and morph them into a dragon or dragon-like creature. Their serpent-like appearance caused them to be imperfect, but if they could be dragon-like enough to take his genetic information, it may be possible to create a full dragon. However, there was a mistake. Priscilla. Seath captured maidens not out of irrational obsession, but because he wanted to ensure that they were not pregnant, and a virgin cannot be pregnant. But one woman evidently had a lover out of wedlock, and was pregnant with an illegitimate child, one that will be born out of wedlock, or commonly known as a bastard child. Enduring the horrific experimentation of Seath, the scaleless dragon may have had his first success. However, it was only due to the pre-existing pregnancy. Much like the corruption of Guts and Casca's child in Berserk, the dragon influence of Seath welded semi-successfully, changing the nature of the child. Priscilla was the result. Bastardy or illegitimacy may be a reference to royalty or godhood, as the word is often used to describe the sons and daughters of such people who are not entitled to inheritance. But now it could simply mean that because it was out of wedlock, Seath was caught unawares and went ahead with his experiments. Indeed, the peculiar doll is just as likely to be owned by the mother of Priscilla as Priscilla herself. After Seath's experiments, she is likely to have been an abomination. Also, one must take note of the fact that at no point does the item description put an age or age range on the owner of the doll. The community has simply assumed it was owned by a child due to the fact it's a doll. Who knows? Priscilla's pale nature may be from growing up in a cold and lonely world, lacking in light. Indeed, there is no recognition of the peculiar doll by Priscilla, and it is unlikely her childhood would have had a place for such things as dolls. And if the peculiar doll does indeed refer to Priscilla, then the reason she would have no place in this world is because even her own creator didn't want her, as she represented a dangerous mistake. The rest of the world didn't want her either, fearing her abilities and her closeness to dragons. If she had had a purpose, and had been created deliberately and not by accident, then she certainly would have had a place. Indeed, Seath is just as afraid of Priscilla as the gods. Her capacity for life hunt and her potential superiority to Seath certainly would not have put a smile on his bony face. He was quite happy to deliver her up and lock her away. What if a creature such as Priscilla was able to wield not only life hunt, but use humanity's weapons in addition to the natural gifts of the dragons? If Seath had ambitions for ruling the future, he would want to seal her away. Destroying her may be foolish, after all, she is genetically unique, but firm quarantining is vital. However, what immediately becomes vitally important, now there is one of Priscilla's kind, is that there are never two. If two such creatures arose, then they could have children, and chaos would arise in Seath's planned world. Here, he becomes far more obsessed with maidens, and makes an especial focus on religious maidens. Guinevere's maidens, for example, may have been sent to convents at a young age. As Seath cannot risk a similar mistake, he cannot take much risk, and develops an obsession for this type of young woman, who have been overseen by an organisation and thus have an extremely low likelihood of being pregnant. Finally, we believe Seath may have been successful in his ultimate goal. The number of maidens he experiments on drops drastically. He evidently has been in Ash Lake, and the stone dragon is not only a descendant of the ancient dragons, but looks like a youth. It still has a smallish head-to-body ratio, still has feathers and young partial fluff, and most importantly, it sits right in the middle of a nest. All this doesn't seem by accident. It seems instead to hint at the concept that this is a relatively young dragon. Its infinite health also implies it was successful in acquiring the scales of immortality at birth. We also believe the dragon is female, as it is near a bonfire, and it is a bonfire with 10 Estus uses. Classic evidence of a firekeeper bonfire. Firekeepers seem to be exclusively female. Even the proximity to a bonfire and the naming of the bonfire as Stone Dragon Bonfire is another signal. If so, Seath now has a direct and natural line into the rebirth of the dragon race, with him as the patriarch. This could explain the reason for the continued survival of the stone dragon. It has not yet been harvested of scales. It would be a very foolish thing after so much work, with what is perhaps the singular success of all his experiments, simply to kill and harvest this single creature, with so many potential dragons that can be created down the line. The fact that the Lord Vessel can be used to warp to this bonfire means it could be possible that Gwendolyn knows about the bonfire. Could then the elimination of Seath, surely an arbitrary thing for such a currently inactive dragon, be more about the elimination of one of a male-female pair, thus ensuring the dragons do not revive? However, one first has to find the bonfire before you can warp there. Perhaps Havel made it warpable, but it was only he and a few chosen others who both had the power to warp and knew of its location. This may even put Seath's success at a later point than even the Rebellion or the Dragon Covenant. Certainly, we do not find corpses or items anywhere near the stone dragon herself. Then again, the Japanese description of the dragon headstone states that the art of the transcenders who are trying to get closer to the ancient dragon, praying to it. Living is a weakness. Even the gods who are persons of fire are no exception. The goal of the transcenders is apparently to be different from life, which implies that the stone dragon may have already been there. In addition, it again affirms the link between the rebels against the gods and the Dragon Covenant. Or what if, in an even more devious move, the dragon was delivered to the rebels and Dragon Covenant as if by accident? They proceed to take care of it and keep it safe, little knowing that they are doing a safekeeping job for Seath. What could be possible, and this is more speculation here, is that it could have been a happy escape. Consider the description of the Archive Tower extra key. It states that perhaps the Serpent Men were careless, for there are several keys scattered about which fit Archive Tower cells. Now, this is a very leading item description. The overwhelming impression is that they were not careless, and that it's a deliberate ploy to leave the keys. This would therefore imply that escape is a desired result. Combine this with the fact that the Serpent Men do not ever attack the Pisaka, and we have an interesting theory. It is that, for whatever reason, a direct dragon to human pregnancy is not possible, but a Pisaka, called by the siren immediately once you escape, which, by the way, in and of itself makes our escape seem far less organic, considering it is discovered in an instance, almost as if they were waiting for us to do so, proceeds to act as a kind of parasite implanter and stabs the escapee in the abdomen. The escaping maiden is impregnated, or whatever one wishes to call it, and perhaps succeeds in killing the Pisaka or getting up the ladder, unlike a maiden who knows she has been given a...
Quanto tempo será que eu tô moscando? Acho que bastante tempo, mano. Puta merda. Chega, família, chega. Chega.